Now that Goku's at the party, everyone is having a good time. Whether it's conquering the unjust or lifting the spirits of his family and friends, Goku is indeed #1 under the sun. Goku is indeed #1 under the sun. #1 under the sun.
Right.
Hello everyone, I am Zazubaar. Welcome to a very special video. Joining me for this very special video is of course, my confidant in the world of Dragon Ball Z, Dylan McCandless, aka Super DM64.
Hello everyone.
So Dylan, this is kinda gonna be an episode of the Demons from Outer Space, I guess? Because it's you and me and we're talking about Dragon Ball Z, so this will be a Demons from Outer Space episode and everything except the name.
Because it's our belated Thanksgiving.
It is our belated Thanksgiving special. And what else could we possibly be giving thanks for than our Lord and Savior of the Dragon Ball world, Son Goku? Or should we? Should we be giving thanks for Son Goku? I mean, you'd think the reasons would be obvious. He saved the world a countless amount of times. He's the strongest fighter in the universe. He is widely considered to be the nicest person in the universe. Potentially. That might be a little bit broad, but whatever. That's what the show has. That's how the show comes off. And in the episode where you remember the episode He's Always Late, where Goku is late to Bulma's barbecue at the end of the Buu Saga, where that was right before the time jump to canonically now after Super. You know the episode I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So in that one, at the end, that episode is basically one big just masturbation session for how awesome Goku is. And I only mean that in the sense of...
I mean, isn't that all of DBZ post, like, Frieza?
Well, yeah, not so much Cell. Not so much Cell.
But whenever Goku's not there, everybody just keeps talking about, oh, I wish Goku were here, and then fucking...
Yeah, everybody's always banging on about how fucking great
the whole reason Trunks goes back in time is because Bulma's like, if Goku had been there...
Yeah, exactly. It's hilarious,
you
too. That's how
him up.
It's hilarious that that's how that arc starts, and it ends up not being how it's resolved. I find that really interesting. But anyway, we'll talk about this. We're going to talk about Cell a lot in this video, I presume. So we're going to talk about all of Dragon Ball Z a lot. So anyway, let me just say this. So in that episode, He's Always Late. Goku is late to Bulma's barbecue while the rest of his family goes early. And the reason why he's late is because he's watching over a bunch of dragon eggs as they're hatching. He doesn't want anything to happen to them. Because for some reason he thinks that if he's not there, something really bad is going to happen. And guess what? Conveniently, he's right. He saves the eggs a whole bunch of different ways. He fights off some dinosaurs. He chases them through some water. He gets eaten by a fish, I think, at one point. It's been a while since I've seen the episode, but that's what I remember. And at the end of the episode, after Goku has finally gotten to the barbecue... How
much you want to bet that if they ever do this episode in abridged, the whole reason he's defending the eggs is so that he can eat them after they hatch?
I wouldn't be very surprised if they don't do that. It's gonna be weird, though, because in Dragon Ball Z, there's sort of like, those dragon pterodactyl things are sort of like background characters, because, you know, there's also an episode in the early
some of them are sentient. Because
some of them
Goku fights one in the Tenkaichi Budokai, his very first time ever entering the tournament, but way back in Dragon Ball, he fights a pterodactyl thing, and I forget its name, but then later on Piccolo's henchman Tambourine murders it, and it's like a whole thing. So like some of them are sentient, and then there's like fucking Icarus.
And then there's Icarus, who canonically now only exists in the Garlic Jr. saga, right?
No, he shows up some after that.
Maybe a little bit into the android stuff.
Yeah,
maybe.
Like during like the filler before the android shit happens, and then we never speak of him again.
Exactly. Then he pops up in Cool Wars Revenge, and that's it. That's it. He's done. He's dead. Goku eats him. Yummy dragon meat. Anyway, so the point I was trying to make is that at the end of that episode, once Goku's gotten to the barbecue, he gets shit from Chi-Chi, but then Chi-Chi forgives him instantly. And that's kind of the point, that she loves him despite all his flaws and everything. And then at the end of the episode, you know, everybody's having a good time. Goku, like, basically turns Vegeta sort of into, like, one of the gang officially. Wait, we can talk about that later. I definitely want to talk about Vegeta in this, too. So, at the end, the narrator goes, truly, Goku is the #1 under the sun. Because he's just, like, he's the friendliest guy, he's the best guy, and I've remembered that since childhood.
Is that literally what the narrator says?
Yeah!
Terrible.
Dude, it has been ingrained in my soul since I was like 8 years old, hearing him describe Goku.
Under the sun.
Number 1 under the sun. But it's in the
DBZ announcer voice.
Yeah, it's in the DBZ narrator voice though, so it's really badass. He's like, truly, Goku is number 1 under the sun. It's like, it's a terrible line, but
what will he
it's
do
awesome.
next? Find out next time on Dragon Ball.
Dragon Ball Z. Well, he's gonna be raising a grandkid, and sort of hint at the next series.
But not really. Not really, because the hint they dropped for the next series gets dropped within the first episode of the next series.
And then the next series is dropped out of continuity.
And then there's another series which has yet to catch up with the end of this series.
Yeah, exactly. So, I've been watching Dragon Ball Super lately.
Yes.
And that, as well as being on a huge Dragon Ball Z kick ever since Resurrection F came out.
God, my entire life right now is just a combination of DBZ and Star Wars.
Dude, I'm pretty much exactly the same way. So that leads me to a question now, Dylan. And I pitched this to you last night on a whim. I've basically been playing this for the past 24 hours, but it's something that's been on my mind since childhood. So the question that I want to ask to you, bro. And we're going to get real with this. We're going to do some in-depth analysis of the Dragon Ball mythos in order to determine the end-all, be-all answer to this question, or at least our interpretations of it. Dylan, is Goku a bad person?
Yes, and here's the thing. We actually had a conversation about this recently.
We did.
In which I stated that not only do I think you can make the argument for Goku being a bad person, but if you think about it, he doesn't know how to not be a bad person.
We'll get into that.
He doesn't know how to be a good person because he has a very specific upbringing. If you go back,
as in a lack of upbringing.
If you go back to Dragon Ball, he is just completely socially retarded. He does not know.
It's pretty much, yeah.
He doesn't know how anything works. I mean, he proposes to Chi-Chi by fucking accident.
Yeah, he does, which is amazing, because he thinks that it's something to eat.
And then at the end of the series, Chi-Chi shows back up, and he's like, who are you? And she tells him, and then she's like, we have to get married. And he's like, oh, really? That's a thing? And then they go get married.
Yeah, so let's go back to the very, very beginning with this, because I think that, I also think, and I'm going to say the same thing you did, except I'm actually going to go a little bit further with the whole, he can't really be held responsible fully, so here's what I have to say about it generally. So this is just our general
thoughts. Do I think he's done some things that could under the normal moralist worldview cast him as a shitty person? Yes. Do I think he's at fault for that? Not really.
No, I'm with you. I think that he is a bad person in the same way that somebody who was tortured. This is a little weird comparing this to Goku, but I think he's a bad person in the same way that somebody who has been tortured by a parent or something and has been brought up in nothing but hatred and suffering, and then expect that person to end up being a decent human being once they escape from that life and enter the real world. Obviously, they're not going to be. They can't possibly be at first. It's going to take some time, and even then, it's impossible to overcome that emotional baggage and truly indoctrinate yourself into society and be able to relate with other people on the same level.
If anybody's ever taken a sociology class, there are real-world examples where, like, they find a child who has either been, like, locked in a basement their entire life or raised by wolves or some shit like that.
And the raised by wolves is definitely the most apt way to describe Goku.
And they can't be a person. They can't function. It's a thing. Like, yeah. I think Goku has a bit of an advantage being a fucking Saiyan, but at the same...
We'll talk about the Saiyan shit, yeah.
But it's just, they don't know how to be because they haven't been socialized properly or at all in some cases, and so it's...
And even before he was by himself in the woods, even with his grandfather, like, his Grandpa Gohan never really prepared him for, like, social activity or anything, because he was off in the woods by himself, too. That's why he was able to just pick up this baby and just raise it as his own grandson.
Right, I mean...
Because nobody was fucking around.
Yeah, it's like a hermit finds a baby and raises it to be a hermit, and then the hermit...
God, imagine if Master Roshi found Goku as a baby.
A hermit raises a baby to be a hermit, and then the hermit baby accidentally kills the old man hermit, and so now he's a hermit baby who doesn't even have anybody to teach him how to properly be a hermit baby. And then he, like, gets introduced to people from the real world, and I use real in quotations there. And then
let's be careful with the word real in this video.
And then It's just this whole mess. It's like his entire socialization process is just fucked.
Yeah. And let's go back to the very...
It's the major thing that separates him from, like, Superman. I know a lot of people like to compare Goku to Superman.
Oh, I was going to do that too, in this video.
He's like the Japanese Superman. The big thing that separates them is that Superman gets to grow up in a very well-balanced home environment, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, depending on continuity, and not the continuity where he's told, maybe you should have let him die.
Well, even then, he's still being raised from absolute infanthood in a fairly normal, stable family life.
Traditional Superman, he's raised in, like, fucking... You know what Kansas looks like before Dorothy goes to Oz? That's
exactly what Superman was raised in. And you know, the more expanded universe Superman stuff you read, it's the more you learn that, like, you know, he grew up in very humble, very sort of not downtrodden, very sort of, you know, very low key sort of lifestyle, and very, very normal. So that's why Superman is the way he is. That's why it bothers me when some of the criticisms that people bring up against Superman. I don't want to make this video about Superman, but it's interesting to compare them. And I'm going to say one thing that I think is very apt to Goku in a second. But that's what bugs me when people complain about Superman, is that people are like, oh, he's impossible to relate to because of his powers. And I'm like, that's not what you relate to him about. You relate to him because he's a normal guy raised in probably the same circumstances as you were, you know, maybe potentially better or worse, whatever, just with these incredible godlike abilities that he has to live with. That's what makes Superman interesting and endearing to me.
I have serious narrative objections to Superman, but it isn't a matter of being able to relate to him. It's a matter of how he's
hard to make interesting in terms of combat.
Yeah, because he's overpowered, and then it's like
yeah, absolutely.
The whole explanation behind why he beats Goku in the second death battle essentially boils down to bad writing.
Which also kind of bugged me when I actually sat down and watched it, but whatever. Maybe we'll talk about that in another video. But here's what I want to talk about with Goku. Let's compare Goku and Superman for just a second. Just to sort of... Do you think Superman is a bad person? Because I don't, and I think Goku is, comparing them on the same terms.
Okay. Well, again, Superman does have the advantage of being raised in a way where
he's definitely got less of an excuse to act like a dick.
He has a moral upbringing which allows him to know really how to be a good person, or at least, you know, what he... And I mean, that's subjective, obviously, to each individual, but he has some sort of, like, traditional upbringing. He understands, like, that the concept of right and wrong as society has created them, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly.
So is he a bad person? And, you know, it's weird discussing a DC character because of all the fucking continuity craziness, but
let's talk basic, generic, public consciousness of Superman.
I'm gonna take DCU Superman, because DCU is the version of DC Universe that or not DC, I mean DCAU, not just DCU.
Oh, okay.
The DCAU is the version...
That's an interesting version of Superman to go with, too, because he's based more on the early Superman. But yeah, go ahead.
He's powered down some, which makes him more interesting, hence why I like
it. Yeah, that is my favorite version of Superman as well, yeah.
But that's just the version of the DC Universe in general that I'm most familiar with because of my childhood.
Because comics are bullshit and everything.
Yeah, no, he's a total Boy Scout. I mean, he's not...
He is.
I mean, he can have moments, I think, where he can take on sort of a holier-than-thou attitude, but not intentionally.
No, he always tends to do it in a way where afterwards he's like, well, I didn't fucking mean for that to happen, I'm sorry.
He's never intentionally a dick. And, you know, Goku's never intentionally a dick either, so it's a weird comparison.
Yeah, no, I will agree. Goku is never intentionally a dick, but I think the circumstances under which they are being a dick, Superman is less at fault simply because it's always the person who is perceiving him as a dick, not totally understanding the situation. Because usually when people perceive Superman as a dick, and when Superman seems to be acting like kind of a dick, it's in a situation where somebody in his position could not possibly not act like kind of a dick. You know? Where it's like, think about like, I'm trying to think of an example. Alright, think of somebody trying to commit suicide, and you can think of any reason you want for them trying to kill themselves, but let's say it's monetary. Let's say they're about to get fired from their job. And this has been done a million times in Superman stories where somebody's about to kill themselves and he has to talk them down. And he always agrees not to catch them if they jump. He just wants to talk them down. And always, almost always, there are again exceptions, the person who Superman is trying to talk down is always instantly like, fuck you, you can't understand, you're an alien, you have all these incredible powers, how could you possibly understand how I feel? And Superman is always just like, yeah, you're kind of right. At least that's what he's thinking, probably. And he always seems to go, yes, but that doesn't mean that your life is any less valuable, and also that your life is any less able to get better. You know, the fact that he has those powers, it has very little to do with the type of person that he is, and with what he does with them. So I think that that's what makes Superman not a dick. And let's get into that too. Superman saves people for the sake of saving people. He's not a fighter, and that's what the Death Battle videos get into that I like. They make it very clear that Superman does not only not enjoy fighting, but is also not very good at it. He's not really a great, like, fisticuffs type of fighter, but like Goku
not in terms of strategy or technique or anything like that.
And again, depending on your version, but particularly the DCAU version, he's a blunt instrument. He just fucking rams at the problem.
I mean, he's effective at it simply because of his
it's because of his
incredible advantage in terms
of
strength. But he doesn't have like the sort of skill level that you see.
Which does that make him a bad superhero? Maybe, but a bad person? I don't think so. I think Superman is a good person simply because he helps people simply because he can.
And I like how that was actually one of the things that I liked that they did in Man of Steel, is that he has trouble fighting Zod because Zod is a warrior who's been trained his entire life to like fight and shit, and Superman's just like, I'm gonna punch him, and
Superman still has the advantage simply because he's used to living on Earth for 30 years. But even that's addressed, where Zod takes off the armor and is just like, I've mastered these powers in like a day, and it's taken you a lifetime, so you're fucked. Which is kind of why Superman kills him in the end, but whatever. So let's get back to Goku now, because I want to ask you, comparing Goku to Superman, do you think Goku counts as a superhero?
In the traditional sense,
he does save people, but more often than not, he does save people generally as well. But more often than not, it's people that he knows that he's saving, family, friends.
Yeah, I don't know if I can really put him in the superhero category.
The show does. He's referred to as a superhero a couple of times, especially later on.
Yeah, but I don't know if I can really put him into the superhero category. I mean, he's definitely a heroic figure, but I don't know if I can necessarily call him a superhero, just because he doesn't really conform to the tropes thereof. Not
really, yeah.
He doesn't. You know, he doesn't have a secret identity. He doesn't have all these things that, and I know that's not even like a thing.
Those aren't necessitative to his being a superhero, but he does not fit the traditional mold of the costume.
He doesn't have any of the trappings that you would associate with a superhero at all.
He's Superman without Superman. He's kind of like Clark Kent if Clark Kent didn't become Superman and just was Clark Kent and didn't have a secret identity.
He's Clark Kent if Clark Kent had been raised by a hermit, and then
exactly.
And then the hermit died and he was left in the wilderness on his own, and then met a girl with blue hair.
Exactly. Now, speaking of, so we've agreed that Goku is not a superhero. So now I want to go back. You know, before we go back, I want to bring up one more point with the superhero angle. So we've established that Superman saves people simply because he can and is able, so he does. And he thinks that that's the right thing to do with his powers. That's the way he's been brought up. That's what he morally thinks is the right thing to do with those abilities. Why does Goku typically save the world?
Well, generally speaking. It can be for a number of reasons, actually. Sometimes it's because
there has been variety.
Sometimes it's because somebody fucks with one of his friends, and/or family. Either Krillin gets killed, which has happened twice, or Gohan gets kidnapped, which has also happened twice if you count the movies.
Yes. Oh, that's right. Yeah. I always forget that Raditz kidnapped Gohan for some reason, even though that was like a massive fucking event.
And that's kind of the first episode.
Yeah, I know. I always forget. The first episode is always the one I remember the least effectively.
That's interesting. For me, I always remember the big moments of the show, and then it's like the little in-between stuff that I'm like, what happened?
Yeah, no, it's like I remember the big moments But I haven't rewatched the Saiyan saga since I was very young, so that's why I don't really remember it as well.
Anyway,
it's weird to go back and watch that stuff. But anyway, yeah, let's get back to the question.
So occasionally he will fight someone for that reason. In his younger days, it would occasionally be because he was on his quest to find the Dragon Balls, and somebody else would be in the way, either because they were also trying to get the Dragon Balls or whatever it may be.
And I think that in Dragon Ball, he's a way better person than he is in DBZ, and the ensuing stuff. I think that his heroics are seemingly more innocent, where it's just like it seems to be more of a Superman thing, where it's like he encounters a problem and he's just like, I am able to solve this, so I will, because that's the right thing to do.
And I think the whole thing we've been talking about how he doesn't know how to be a tradition, how to like function in society, is more apparent in Dragon Ball because he's younger and he's still learning and shit. And so I think when he does like do things that might be questionable, you tend to overlook them a bit more.
And it's also, he has way less responsibility to other people in Dragon Ball, which will be probably the biggest thing we talk about once we eventually get into more of the meat of DBZ and get beyond all the origin stuff. But yeah, he's definitely more. I would definitely say he's more of a traditional hero in Dragon Ball than he is in the rest of Dragon Ball canon. But it's also, he's a different kind of hero in Dragon Ball. He's more of like a fantasy hero in Dragon Ball, where he's sort of just like a young man going on an adventure for self-betterment, who's helping other people do the same along the way. And that's a very endearing story. So there's sort of less weight put on that kind of character's shoulders to be a really upstanding moral person. Like, they can be a little bit more, since again, what they're setting out to do is inherently sort of selfish, self-betterment. They're sort of, we give them a little bit more wiggle room traditionally to sort of be a little bit more morally ambiguous. But the point I was trying to get to earlier is that more often than not, Goku's sole reason for wanting to the major reason he wants to save the world from threats is because he wants to put his own strength as a test up against this stronger threat. That he's always trying to find the strongest opponent to put his strength up against. And more often than not, those strong opponents are bad guys. They're your Friezas, your Cells, your Majin Buus, your... Beerus isn't a bad guy, but, the typical strongest guys in the universe are the bad guys, which I find interesting, but, typically that's your situation. So that's a little bit of a different type of heroism than we were talking about with Superman, and also early Goku and Dragon Ball.
Yeah. Well, the thing that happens, I think, and this is totally only a thing once DBZ gets rolling, this idea of Goku like wanting to fight other opponents because they're strong and he wants to fucking beat them up. It's
I'm gonna beat him up. We'll talk about a bridge in this too, because
I'm gonna beat him up. It only comes up once DBZ gets rolling, and I think it's because of the events of the Saiyan saga, because he finds out about this Saiyan heritage of his, and he I think. Sort of his latent Saiyan personality traits that had been wiped out by him hitting his head as a youngster sort of get awakened at this time. And I think he, over the course of the following sagas, begins to sort of delve a bit more into those Saiyan personality traits, and this comes full swing when he first transforms into a Super Saiyan. And just like...
Yeah, he's just a straight up Saiyan when he first fights Frieza as a Super Saiyan.
Yeah. A lot of trash talk going on there.
Yeah, definitely. And also, Goku, and people love to bring this up when they talk about that fight, at the point in which Goku transforms into a Super Saiyan and fights Frieza, he's not really doing it to quote-unquote save the day anymore. He's more doing it because he's like, this is hard, and fuck this guy.
Yeah.
And it's more out of like, this is the strongest opponent I've ever faced, and I'm fighting this to the very end, and to our very ends. And it's more about his own strength at that point, about that, and about the continuing the fight than it is about any moral upstanding that he's trying to do. It all sort of starts out that way when Frieza first kills Vegeta, and kills Krillin, and almost kills Piccolo, and all that. But as the fight goes on, and as the Super Saiyan personality takes over, because it is a personality too, especially at first. Like, he has absolutely no control.
And
over...
he reins it in by the end of that fight, though, because by the end of the fight, he returns to his typical self by, showing mercy on Frieza way too many times.
Yeah, and we'll talk about Resurrection F in this as well, but I guess we can sort of get into it now, too.
As the fight progresses and he gets more used to being in that Super Saiyan form, he sort of reclaims a bit of his own personality traits. And it's still a thing even now, though, when he goes Super Saiyan, he's noticeably more serious in his fighting. And
noticeably more cocky, too. He's a lot more like Vegeta when he transforms into a Super Saiyan.
But he manages to maintain his sort of goodness and...
and purity.
Yeah.
And innocence and all that. And ultimately at the end of the day, he will always stick his neck out for the little guy and to protect people. And
then there are those moments in DBZ where he turns into a total Christ figure where he's like, "You're hurting innocent lives. I'm going to resurrect this bird and then kick your ass."
Yeah. Now, but technically that's not canon. But I will say we're going to sort of dip in and out of stuff that's canon. In this, because I do want to talk about GT as well.
DBZ. A long time ago, Akira Toriyama threw his hands up in the air and said, "What's canon?" And and now I sort of have to.
Well, now it's more of an issue though because we've retconned so much of Dragon Ball now.
Yeah.
With taking out GT and everything and the movies and all that, and the newer good movies as well. So it's more of an issue now just because we're getting new Dragon Ball stuff regularly. But okay. So, before we get any further, I wanted to do this earlier, but whatever. We hit some interesting notes already. So, the thing I want to do, before we go any further, and before we break down some really specific stuff to figure out if Goku's a bad person, is I want to define what a bad person is on a really, really general level. Now, and it's a very general thing to define, because a person can be bad. A person can qualify as a bad person for any number of reasons, and they're very rarely the same reasons. But we're breaking this down to general points as to things that you analyze that make somebody morally wrong.
And again, it's all subjective because people on the whole cannot come to a consensus on what bad is. Hell, they can't even really come to a consensus on what constitutes a person. So,
yeah, absolutely, especially nowadays.
People will never agree on anything, is essentially what I'm getting at. So,
also, we probably should have said this earlier, but we're sorry if anybody gets mad at us for suggesting this. I didn't even think of that until now, but this is going to be potentially controversial, and people might look at this and go, "These guys are assholes. They don't know what they're talking about. They're idiots. Goku's a great person." But we're really, number one, while we're taking this seriously, we're not really suggesting that you should stop watching Dragon Ball because Goku's a bad person.
I'm not saying that he's a bad person in the way of he's the shitty human being.
Yeah, fuck him. No, not at all. I love Goku.
I'm saying he's a bad person in that, again, he doesn't really know how to be a good person. He has some very specific character flaws, just because of who he is and the circumstances in which he was brought about.
And it's especially going to become more apparent and more important that he is kind of a bad person once he starts to have to be responsible for other people, and that's where Goku really struggles, and that's where his ultimate moral failings sort of come out.
They address this in Fukatsu no F.
They do. They have addressed it more recently.
He has to recognize that he has this huge character flaw that winds up allowing Frieza to blow up the whole fucking planet, and then he has to fix that situation.
Mm-hmm. All right, so here we go. Let's just define basic. What is a bad person, Dylan? According to thefreedictionary.com, I definitely didn't just click on the first link that I saw.
Oh, God.
It's a noun, and bad person refers to a person who does harm to others. Now, that's very, very, very broad, because in what terms are we describing harm?
Right.
Because on one level, you can immediately say that Goku's a bad person, because he fights people. That's the thing that he does. He's a fighter. That's what he does.
Yeah,
he instinctively fights people.
The problem with this definition is that it does not address motive or intent at all. Intent is another thing. You can cause harm to another person completely without intending to do so. I think the problem with this definition is that by this definition, there are no good people.
Yes, very, very true. Because everybody, and also listen as well. We're also not saying Goku is a bad person because he fucked up once or twice. I mean, Superman has fucked up way more times than Goku has, and in many different continuities and for way worse reasons. So it's.
Remember that time he was a communist, everybody?
You remember that time? Well, he was kind of a better person than he is in the mainstream universe, and that until the very end. But we're more taking this on a level of Goku continues to fuck up, and people continue to not call him out on it, or at least not call him out on it enough and push it.
I've seen a lot of people on the internet debating whether or not he's a bad father, and I think that's going to come into this discussion.
Oh, that's probably the biggest part of this.
But there's not a lot of people saying, "Hey, is he a shitty human being?"
I think we'll save the father thing for last, just because again it's the biggest thing and it has the most to cover. Because I think that he's definitely a shitty father, but we'll get there.
Yeah. Again, due to the fact that he doesn't know how to be a good father.
Yeah, he has no example to base it on. Even Grandpa Gohan died when he was super young, so he has nothing to base being a good father on except what Chi-Chi tells him being a good father is supposed to mean.
He doesn't know who the fuck. He doesn't know who the fuck Bardock is.
Yeah, exactly. And even when he finds out, he's like, "That's not really my father." I wasn't even really raised by him at all, even. So okay. So let's take it back to the very beginning now, bearing this definition of a bad person in mind and bearing our exceptions to it in mind. So let's go back to the very beginning. Let's go back to Goku's origin. So you got Planet Vegeta.
Right.
And you have the Saiyan race. Obviously, the Saiyan race overall, a mess of genocidal maniacs.
Right, although we do know that at some point earlier in their history there were righteous Saiyans because the legends of not only the Super Saiyan but the Super Saiyan God arose out of these examples.
Well, the Super Saiyan legend, the basic Super Saiyan legend is a bit inconsistent just because it's sort of difficult to say what exactly the first Super Saiyan's morality was made up of.
Yeah, it's suggested on.
They don't really get into it.
It's suggested on some occasions that these early Super Saiyans were only able to go Super Saiyan while in their Uzaru forms.
Well, I thought it was implied that all of them were only able to do it in their Uzaru forms.
And then it's all very inconsistent and early
because Toriyama doesn't give a shit, and that's what you need to take away from all this as well.
When Goku first achieves Super Saiyan, it's supposed to be that only a righteous, good-hearted Saiyan can do it, and then Vegeta does it, even though at that point...
For completely selfish reasons.
At that point, he has not completed his rehabilitation, yet he still manages to do it, and now we have Super Saiyan God, which was supposed to be, hey, it's 5 righteous Saiyans, and now Vegeta's done it without those 5.
Yeah, that's true.
This whole to-do.
It's a whole thing.
Very inconsistent.
So we have the Saiyan race, and we have that legend of the Super Saiyan and the Super Saiyan God. So we know there is a precedent in Saiyan history for Saiyans going, hey, hurting people is kind of fucked up. And you've also got to look at the origins of the Saiyan race.
But then we also have the precedent in Saiyan history of, hey, see that other race that shares our planet?
Yeah, I was about to get into the Tuffles, yeah, because again, genocide, they wipe out this entire other group of people just because they're like, hey, we're bigger than you, stronger than you, and fuck you. So they take out this completely other group of people who, the Tuffles are super underdeveloped, especially in canon stuff, but they don't seem to be doing anything wrong to the Saiyans at all. The Saiyans just seem to want to fight, so
and again,
they go after the Tuffles.
Again, the Tuffles are very inconsistent. The first time we see them in the filler episode where Kinkai is introducing them, they're super small, and then we get other Tuffle stuff where they're normal human size, but they're just weaker.
Well, Baby's not a Tuffle, he's a program.
No, but Dr. Mew is a Tuffle.
That's true, and he's also blue.
And then we also have and neither of these things are in canon, but then we also have that other Tuffle scientist from Plan to Eradicate All Super Saiyans. And
then there's that creature that's in that. He's not a Tuffle, he's something genetically engineered.
Yeah, he doesn't even have... He's even less of a Tuffle than Baby was, because Hachiyak... Baby has, Tuffle-like DNA and shit in him. Hachiyak is just a machine built by a Tuffle.
Yeah, exactly. And Baby also... I think he also has memories implanted by Professor Mew in order to make him more, because he also...
I need to rewatch GT because
because we're also planning on doing a video on GT soon. So
I mean, it's only 64 episodes, so it wouldn't take that long. But
most of it gets scrapped though, so it's going to take a lot longer than you think.
But I'm pretty sure it wasn't the idea that the memories of the Tuffle race are implanted within him.
Yeah, because he is also trying to rebuild the race from what's left on Earth. So
essentially, all of the Tuffles are a part of him.
Indeed.
He's like Cell was, but like for every Tuffle.
I would compare him most to General Zod from Man of Steel, going back to that. Zod wants to restart Krypton on Earth, and that's exactly what Baby's trying to do.
Mm.
And I guess you can sort of say that Baby has the Codex in him already, like how Superman already has the Codex in him. In terms of, like, he has the entire memories and history of his race inside of his genes, so...
Yeah. Except his version of restarting his race is, I'm going to possess the bodies of these other people. And I'm like, well, that's not really restarting your race.
Yeah, that's not you're taking another race and saying that it belongs to you, so you're not really doing that, baby. Also, a lot of the strongest warriors, including your own body, by which you're restarting that race, are from another race that you hate and are trying to wipe out of revenge. So
it's like in Doctor Who, when the Master's like, I'm going to turn Earth into the new Time Lord Empire, and I'm like, are you really? If you think about it.
Yeah, not really, bro.
I mean, the second time when you turned everybody on Earth into you, bravo, that's restarting the Time Lords in a fucked up kind of way. But the first time, no.
You went up in a spaceship and you floated around for a year, so you didn't really do that.
Look, you ripped off S.H.I.E.L.D., all right, and you were up there in your little helicarrier.
Absolutely.
And you were floating around, and that thing's never showed up again, and that's a shame. But
Didn't it get blown up?
I think it did at some point.
I think it got blown up in Journey's End by the Daleks. I'm pretty sure. It doesn't matter anyway, because Unit's like totally different now anyway.
If Unit could build that, why don't they build another one?
I'm presuming it's because what happened with the Daleks, but it's also just because they're completely different now anyway. Like, they vanished for seasons.
Yeah.
And then they came back with Kate, and they were just like a totally different thing.
Unit kind of did the thing that again, ripping off S.H.I.E.L.D., that happened to S.H.I.E.L.D. in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where they kind of had to like go underground and shit, and now they're sort of like back.
Yeah, they got infiltrated, yeah. Well, Torchwood kind of took over their gig for a while, and then Torchwood fell apart, and now I think they sort of... I don't think in canon that's the explanation. That's more of just because Torchwood was Russell T Davies' thing. I presume Moffat didn't want anything to do with it, so he got rid of it and brought Unit back.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised if that's the in canon reason too, that Torchwood sort of took over Unit's responsibilities, and then Unit came back once Torchwood was totally dead with whatever happened in Torchwood, because I haven't watched it.
It's all very true. We are way off topic now.
Anyway, exactly. So let's get back to it. So okay, Saiyans, bad people overall, racially speaking. Obviously that's
whoa. Are you stating the quality of this race is determined entirely by their race?
Yeah.
You anti-Saiyan prejudice fuck.
You sayest.
You sayest.
I mean, I could call them monkeys and everything, and it'd be pretty, if I could hurl some of those fucking slurs around, but I'm not gonna, because I have self-respect. But, yeah, if I called them monkeys, like, what am I calling myself?
I don't know, yeah. That's a question.
I'm just as, well, I'm not just as simian as they are, I'm a little bit less simian, just because...
We don't have a tail. We grew out of that.
Yeah, exactly. We're better than you Saiyans because we don't have fucking tails.
They only recently evolved away from having tails, and you know how they did it? They spliced with us, so...
Yeah, exactly. By the way, I find out that tails are a recessive trait in Dragon Ball. So that's why Goten and Trunks don't have tails. They were never born with them to begin with.
If they're a recessive trait, then why the fuck did the entire Saiyan race have them?
No, because they are full-blooded Saiyans. So that's why they have them, because all Saiyans are supposed to have them. But when they mix breed,
I find it odd that any human gene could overpower a Saiyan gene, but alright.
Yeah, I don't really understand that either, but apparently that's the case. But the real reason is because Toriyama forgot that they were supposed to have tails. Because he hadn't drawn them with tails for so long. So when he started drawing Goten and Trunks, he was like, yeah, they have tails. They don't have tails. Deal with it.
This is what I love about Akira Toriyama.
Yeah, he just doesn't give a shit, and that's amazing.
Akira Toriyama is like, if we were inebriated and then we were like, we're going to make a show. Like,
yeah, exactly. That's awesome.
Except he's not inebriated. That's just how he is. It's fucking...
Well, as far as we know. But do you think that that's also part of why we're perceiving Goku as sort of inconsistent and as kind of a bad person as we are? Because I don't think Toriyama intended him to be as morally ambiguous as he is. At least not at first. Nowadays, it's obvious that he is definitely playing with that idea.
I don't know. The other question to consider would be, if we were Japanese, would we be looking at Goku this way? Because morality is defined by culture. And so what an English viewer might look at in DBZ and find morally objectionable, a Japanese person might look at and think, that's totally fine. You know, like the difference in how we look at tentacle rape.
Yeah, but also I don't think that. Yeah, but I don't think when we watch Sonic Rape we're supposed to go, this is fine. I think we're supposed to. I think we're supposed to live in a fantasy of like, this is not okay, but it's hot. I don't live in that world, but I think that's what people who do think.
I mean, we've had this conversation before when we've talked about how weird it is, like in moments in DBZ when it's like Goku and Gohan taking a bath.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely cultural difference. I will definitely agree that there are cultural differences between how we perceive morality and how Japanese overall perceive morality. But you've also got to remember that Toriyama was also hugely influenced by American culture when creating Dragon Ball.
He's more influenced originally by China.
As it went on, it sort of more and more became influenced by American culture. Because obviously Goku's defined origin is very much so inspired by Superman, especially more so when you get into more of the expanded universe Dragon Ball stuff. Like, you ever hear of Dragon Ball Minus?
Yeah, I've heard of that.
And then that's where they expanded Goku's origin, where apparently, which I hope is not canon, because I don't like the way they recharacterize Bardock as being like. So basically, in that
they basically made it even more Superman-ish.
It's exactly like Superman now.
The only thing I like about that is that they showed Goku's mother and they gave her
yeah. So Goku's mother apparently is where he gets all of his sort of gentleness and innocence from, at least genetically speaking, because his mother is not a fighter. She's she likes to look after people and cares about other races and stuff.
Also, there is also one more thing I like about that manga. We finally have an in-canon Kid Raditz.
Nice! Perfect.
And he was adorable.
He was adorable. But in that, Bardock and his wife intentionally send Goku to another planet, to Earth, in order to get him away from the Saiyans, in order to save him from the Wrath of Frieza, which I don't like, because Bardock did not give a shit in Bardock, Father of Goku. He gave a little bit of a shit, but not much of a shit.
Yeah, because that's the way the Saiyan culture was being characterized.
Yeah, they don't really care about their kids. Their kids are there as a way for their genes to live on, and as a way for their fighting to continue. They're a warrior race.
Like, if anybody's ever seen the movie Logan's Run, there's a moment in that movie where Logan 5 is down in, like, the place in their society where the new babies are grown, and he's looking at little baby Logan 6, and then his, like, partner comes up, he's like, what's he doing? And he's like, that's the next Logan. And he's like, who gives a fuck? Let's go. Like, in their society, it's like, okay, it's the next baby. Who gives a shit? Let's fucking go about our business.
And it doesn't matter. Who cares? We're gonna die soon anyway, so what do we care about that?
And that's essentially the way that the Saiyan society has always been characterized. It's like, oh, fucking babies, it's like, they're not pertinent to what's happening right now. We're just gonna put them in, like, some strange nursery where they will be really close to each other and then hear each other crying and then have, like, lifelong vendettas because of that.
And monitor power levels and everything.
Right.
So that's the other thing we have to talk about now, before we go any further. Saiyans are programmed as babies from birth to be warriors. They're sent to planets to conquer them and then come back. That's the idea, right?
Yes.
And I've always been confused by that idea, because I'm just like, how can you guarantee that something on another planet will not be stronger than a Saiyan baby who's received no training? I know that they're inherently powerful from birth, as we see with Goku and Gohan.
Well, it seems to be that they only send the children to planets that do not seem to pose much of a threat. So, like, Goku gets sent to this backwater planet, and it's fucking Earth.
But there are things there that do pose a threat to him as a child, though.
Yeah.
Now, I guess you could argue that we don't know if he had his Saiyan programming fully intact, that those things would still pose a threat. I guess they might not.
It could be that the Saiyan programming comes along with, like, some like basic fighting training. It could be that had he not lost his memories, he would have been a much more proficient fighter and would have been able.
That's possible.
Would have been able to handle those situations much more easily. Also, at the time that Goku arrives on Earth, the things that really are going to be a threat to him later on, because really none of the things that Goku comes across really are a threat to him until you get to King Piccolo. Most of the villains in Dragon Ball, it's like, oh, they're going to try and kill Goku. Isn't that cute? And then he fucking kills him. Or not kills him, but he, like, beats the shit out of him.
True. And I think part of it also is that he's raised on Earth, so he has a perception of what is scary on Earth that a human child does. It's kind of like Superman, where it's like Superman is afraid of, like, fire or whatever, but not because it can hurt him, but because he was raised to believe that fire is something to be afraid of.
Actually, you know what? It does happen a little bit earlier than King Piccolo. I forgot about General Tao. General Tao was
the Red Ribbon Army is a threat to him.
Well, just General Tao, though. He takes out the rest of the Red Ribbon Army with relative ease. General Tao is the first character in all of Dragon Ball who actually, like, beats Goku at first.
But wasn't Krillin stronger than Goku at first?
They were sort of neck and neck. They were training together on that island and
Punching the ground.
punching the ground, which I gotta say, that's some pretty badass training. I'm not gonna lie.
I've just started exercising regularly, and I should start doing that. I should go out in my backyard and start punching the ground.
Yeah, and
I definitely won't break my hand and have irrevocable physical damage that will stick with me through my entire life. Not at all.
one of two things will happen. Either you'll become a Super Saiyan, or you'll get committed.
I will become a Super Saiyan, definitely. Realistic life goals.
Or both. You will think you have become a Super Saiyan, and this will lead to you becoming committed.
What if I actually became a Super Saiyan, but nobody could tell? Like, I couldn't actually transform, but I knew in my heart that I was a Super Saiyan? Which I guess is the same thing as being crazy and thinking that I'm a Super Saiyan.
Well, your hair's already blonde, right? So, I mean, if you became a...
That's exactly... You could never tell! Spike it up!
You became a Super Saiyan and be like, just stick your finger in the fucking socket, or what happened?
And I also wear a hat all the time, so when I take it off, my hair sticks up anyway, so I could basically pass off as a Super Saiyan and not have to prove it, unless somebody tried to fight me. But
saying go Super Saiyan, it's noticeable, because they're all like black hair until you get to Trunks. But you...
Who has gray hair.
But you are not a black and or purple-haired motherfucker, so it would be...
yeah, you're right, I don't have gray hair, so, anyway...
you don't have purple hair, which
you're right, I don't have gray hair, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, Dragon Ball Minus aside, Goku lands on Earth, and his Saiyan programming is erased. So he's a blank slate, pretty much, right? None of that Saiyan programming, as far as we can tell and are told, sticks with him through Dragon Ball until you get to him being introduced to that in Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah.
So we can pretty much discount any of that Saiyan programming from considering him a bad person in Dragon Ball. And to be honest with you, I'm having sort of a hard time coming up with anything in Dragon Ball that is necessitative, or not necessitative, that's a weird word to use in that, that is indicative of him being a morally questionable individual.
No, I mean, there's definitely social awkwardness in play.
Yeah, but again, that's more because of how he was raised.
Especially when he first meets Bulma. And there's that moment where he's like, hey, where's her penis?
Yeah. But that's not... You can't put him at fault for that. He's never seen a girl before, so you can't really put him at fault for that. I mean, it's definitely wrong, but once he learns that, he doesn't do it again. It's not like he's fucking walking around as adult Goku fucking slapping Vidal's cooch to find out if she's got a dick.
She, like, asks him how old he is, and it turns out even though he's super short, he's actually 14 at that point, and she, like, freaks the fuck out.
That's right, yeah. That's usually Goku's family seems to have like a weird growth spurt where it's like they fucking, or Saiyans do in general, where it's like they seem to be really short until they hit a certain peak and then they just fucking become giants. Because you had that with Goku and Gohan, a little bit with Goten if you count GT. So you know. Anyway, that's the point I was trying to make there. Okay, so
well, Vegeta never really hit his growth spurt.
No, well, he's pretty much the same size as Goku towards the end of Z.
Yeah, which is fucking weird, because he's supposed to be a fully grown Saiyan already, and at the point of DBZ's beginning, he is, you know, like, really fucking... He's
really tiny, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is weird, because his dad's gigantic, too. Maybe that's his family tree. Maybe they get giant as they reach a certain point. Maybe it's once they reach their pinnacle of power, or at least what they think is their pinnacle of power, they grow a little bit? Because Vegeta's growth spurt, it is dumb. Because Vegeta's growth spurt really happened. I'm
just going to assume that he got his height genes from whoever his mom was.
Potentially. But you also got to remember that...
Queen Vegeta or some shit.
Probably. But yeah, his growth spurt really happened like as soon as he got back from space and was a Super Saiyan, so who knows. And even then he wasn't as big as he was in the end. Okay, so let's just jump right to Z then, because that's where most of the meat of him being... Oh, well... Alright, so then let's go back a little bit further. So let's go to Chi-Chi then. So, Goku meets Chi-Chi when they're kids. Helps her in some way that I don't remember at all.
He brings Master Roshi to the mountain. And then Master Roshi uses his Kamehameha, the first time the Kamehameha is ever shown in the show, to put out the fire which surrounds the Ox King's castle. But, as a tragic result, the Ox King's castle is obliterated.
And all his riches are burned with it as well.
Indeed. Thus thrusting Goku and Chi-Chi into a life of poverty and Raditz farming.
Raditz farming? Goku's fucking cloning his brother?
Yes.
Yeah. It's like that moment where fucking Bulma is like, is it because you're fat? And Yajirobe's just like, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm the bean daddy.
I am pissed and hungry. She is right to fear me. Okay, so Chi-Chi, Goku helps out Chi-Chi. Good of him, definitely, right? It's good of him to do.
Yeah.
He slaps her on the cooch to find out if she's got a dick.
Right. Still hadn't quite figured that one out yet.
Still learning at 14 whether or not women are supposed to have dicks. And to be fair,
I feel that.
I guess Dylan had a very, very slow upbringing. But I guess you could sort of make the argument that, like, he would have some grounds to be weird because he also had been exposed to shape-shifting at that point with Oolong and Puar.
This is true.
So I guess you could sort of make the argument that he would be a little bit weird about, like, alright, what's going on
He's
here?
mentally scarred by the fact that he once had to dress like a woman so that Oolong would try to fuck him, and that was, like, part of their plan.
I do not remember that at all. What the fuck are you talking about?
When Oolong first shows up, alright, the whole plot of that episode is they find this village that's being terrorized by Oolong because Oolong always comes into the village like shapeshifted into like something terrifying. So like when
like a mech, yeah.
So when he first shows up, he's like this fucking demon character, and then later on in the fight, when he's fighting Gohan, he turns into like a giant robot with a bowl of ramen for some reason.
Well, he's saying he's going to eat Goku, yeah.
He uses his shape-shifting powers to terrorize this village. And what he basically...
That I remember, yeah.
But basically what he does is he comes into the village and he's like, give me one of your women, and then they give him one of their, like, young girls, and he takes them back to his palace. And, like, he has this, like, harem.
That I don't remember at all.
And so in order to find where this palace of his is and rescue the girls, the plan is that they dress Goku up as a female.
God.
And then Oolong takes him back with him to his palace.
Why didn't they just use Bulma?
It's a good question.
Did they ask her and she just said no? Because like that seems like something she would do.
I don't remember the reason, actually. That's a good question.
Is Bulma a bad person? Yes.
Let me look back at my volumes of that there manga.
Let me have a mental regression back to watching Dragon Ball as a boy and remembering being mentally scarred. No, I don't think he's mentally scarred. I don't think he cares because again, he has so little distinction between the sexes at that point.
I don't remember if that was before or after they fought the rabbit who could turn people into carrots.
I don't remember that either.
Oh my god, man! Early Dragon Ball is weird as fuck.
I remember that. I need to go back and rewatch Dragon Ball. But yeah, so okay. So Bulma's a bad person, definitely, and Oolong also definitely a bad person. Or pig man.
Yeah, the first time the dragon ever shows up, Oolong's like, "Give me some panties," and the dragon's like,
"That's not." That's weird, but I don't think that's bad. I think he's mostly bad because he terrorized a small village with oppression.
Way to squander a wish, though. You got a fucking magic dragon. He could have wished for.
Why didn't he wish for Bulma to fuck him?
He could have wished for a woman.
Is he too good for that? Is he too good to wish for forced sex?
He could have had...
I mean, I would hope so.
He could have had a woman, you know?
He could have. He could have wished for... But, again, it's like I guess the question is he's a bad person, but is he that bad of a person? Well, it's like, I guess at that point, why would you care?
So I found the part where they dress Goku up as a girl. By the way, they did this entire thing again in one of the early episodes of GT when they're flying around in space. There's this episode where they meet this alien who's a monster that's essentially doing the same thing that Oolong was doing, and they dress Trunks up as a woman in that one.
That I remember vividly. Oh my god, that's right. I remember it was the fucking...
And the whole reason they reused that plot point is because they were trying to cash in.
That's because GT was trying to rip off early Dragon Ball.
Early in GT, yeah, they were trying to recapture the feeling of early Dragon Ball. No, well, that did, and then they were like, well, that didn't work. Let's just do shitty Z for the rest of the series.
Let's just do shitty Frieza with Baby. Think about it. Baby is Frieza.
Okay, so the reason Goku is the one who dresses up as a woman is because the plan is... Well, basically, it's so that if he discovers that he's not a woman, then they need the person who's infiltrating his palace to be able to fight him.
Okay, fair enough. That's true.
If Bulma went and then he found out that she, like, was not there for the purpose that he thought she was there, then he could just, like, fucking kill her and it wouldn't be a thing.
Well, why would he care, though? he already knows that all the other women that the villagers are giving her don't want to be there. So why would she not wanting to be there make any difference?
I don't know, man. Well, it's not that she's there because
Dragon Ball.
it's not that she's there because she doesn't want to be there. That's the problem. The problem is that she's there.
No, I get it. That she. But I'm just saying he wouldn't kill her though.
She's trying to fuck up his shit. Well, they don't know that at this point though.
Right, but I'm just saying
They don't
that
know
they would have to,
Oolong as a person yet. They don't.
They also don't know that he didn't kill the other girls, do they?
They don't know that he's like. No, actually, that's true. They don't know that he hasn't killed the other girls.
So I guess they would have no reason to assume that. Okay, that makes sense.
Now the plan makes more sense now that I'm remembering it correctly. The plan is for Goku to be dressed up as a girl because they think he's like taking them back to his lair and like killing them or eating them or raping them or some shit like that.
Right.
But then they get there and it's like, oh, he's just.
So they need the kid who can fucking beat the shit out of him in order to.
And then they find out, oh no, he's actually just like constructing a harem of spoiled bitches.
Right, gotcha.
He's living the Hugh Hefner dream.
So, is that a good thing that Goku did? I guess, right?
And then later on we found out that Oolong and Puar went to shape-shifting school together, because apparently shape-shifting school is a thing.
There's a school I'd like to go to, because then you could fuck anybody, and you could just make yourself look as good as you wanted to.
Right. I would totally go to shape-shifting school.
Oh, I'd go there in a heart. Even if I couldn't do it, I would pretend like I kind of make my fingers look weird, so it kind of looked like I did it, and be like, oh, I do have mild shape-shifting.
Like that is on my list of superpowers I'd like to have. That's a good one.
I'd rather have teleportation. Anyway, so let's get back to Chi-Chi then. So. Now let's jump ahead to the end of Dragon Ball, to the Budokai tournament, where Chi-Chi and Goku fight. Chi-Chi informs Goku that they are supposed to be married. And again, I think all early Dragon Ball can pretty much be summed up as Goku is an idiot and it's fine. So Goku's accidental proposal to Chi-Chi, fine, totally understandable. He's a child. He barely knows what a girl is,
because
it's totally fair that he would fuck that up.
Because you got to remember that right up to the end, Dragon Ball, without the Z, is still very much a comedy-based show.
Oh yeah, definitely.
There's fighting in it, but that's not really the focus. Really, the fight with Goku and Piccolo at the end is the first time that a fight ever feels like Z. Like, that's the first time you have a fight that's, like, all out, like, fucking... Like, even the fight that he has with King Piccolo before that when he's a boy, it's, like, full of, like, little comedy bits and shit.
Yeah, also the techniques weren't as advanced either, so it's a lot more your traditional sort of kung fu stuff.
Yeah, the battle with Piccolo Jr. at the tournament is the first time that you get like a Z levels of awesomeness in the fight, and then Piccolo fucking grows giant and never uses it again, and it's
because he's a fucking idiot.
Why
didn't he do that when Gohan went Uzaru?
Why wouldn't you do that always? Why?
Exactly. Well, I'm assuming that it's got to cut his power, just like splitting himself does.
No, that didn't seem to be the problem. It was just like...
It's got to use some ki, though, right?
I'm assuming. I don't know how it works.
Do the Saiyans use ki when they transform into apes? Yes, right?
I'm not sure. It's a good question.
I'm assuming they do, just because usually when they turn back into normal Saiyans, they seem pretty drained. And I'm basing that a lot on GT, which, again, not canon, and also... Usually when they turned into Uzaras, it was because they were turning into Super Saiyan 4, so obviously that's going to drain your ki.
I'm thinking maybe when they go Uzaru, it just sort of like taps into some of their latent potential, and then they sort of like burn through their ki a little quicker. That's how I would imagine it would work. It's almost like the Golden Frieza form.
True. Or even Super Saiyan, where it's like, you know, it's still going to burn through your body, because you still have a certain amount of life force that the transformation has to run off of, so...
Yeah.
It's still gonna require some energy. Anyway,
have you reached the point in Super yet where they do the Super Saiyan God transformation?
Yeah, I'm at the second episode where he's all Super Saiyan Godded up.
Oh, okay. So you already saw like the way overblown transformation sequence.
Oh my god, it was so fucking long. It was like the Super Saiyan 3 transformation all over again. It was very similar too. Like the sky opened up and a bunch of clouds came to Goku.
It was like all biblical and shit, man.
Yeah, well, I get why, because it's the God transformation.
But they were like, hey, you know what? For this episode, let's just do the transformation. We'll just make it the whole fucking episode.
It pretty much was, too. Also, again, whenever they cut to just the Saiyans themselves sitting in that circle, they all looked really bad.
The way...
You would have thought, at least for the transformation, they would have upped the animation quality, but no.
I've recently been rewatching the Android and Cell stuff. there's a similar thing that happens when Cell reaches his perfect form. He has this transformation that takes up a lot of screen time, but it's done way better. It looks cooler. The music is amazing because Bruce Faulkner, and and it doesn't take up the entire episode.
Yeah. And that's a lot of the problem with Dragon Ball Z is that it's so shittily paced, because of the nature of how it was made, being written at the same time as the manga.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get back to determining whether or not Goku's a bad person. So let's talk about Goku's reaction and actions to Chi-Chi informing him that they're supposed to be married. Is he doing the right thing by marrying her? Is my question to you.
Well, on the one hand, he is fulfilling a promise that he had made.
Okay.
On the other hand, he doesn't really understand what's going on, even at that point.
Does he, though?
I mean, hold on. I'm trying to find...
Because this is also... He had traveled the world for a couple of years at this point, too. That's where he did all his growing. Because he vanishes at the end of the King Piccolo stuff as a kid, travels the world, and then grows up and comes back at the end of Dragon Ball as a fully grown adult. Well, not fully grown adult, but as a grown man, sort of.
Okay, I'm looking at the manga right now. So Chi-Chi reveals that she's Chi-Chi. And then everybody's like, oh shit, it's Chi-Chi. And then Goku has a flashback to when he promised her the hand. Let's see. And then he says, wow, all this time I thought she meant something to eat. Well, I guess that's it. I did promise. Okay, we better go get married. And then they walk off screen. And
Alright, that's different than in the manga. Or in the anime, rather. Because in the anime, it's played a little bit differently, where Goku almost seems like he remembered it the second she showed up. They play it more romantic in the anime, which I guess is because... I guess Funimation changed it a little bit because they wanted to make Goku seem a little bit more romantic. Because there's that moment in the anime where Goku...
I don't know, though. I've never seen the Japanese version of the anime, so I don't know.
Me neither. So I don't know how it plays in that, but in the American version, Goku says...
it could be that it was...
Sometimes my mouth says things that my brain doesn't realize, but good thing that my heart does. And then he agrees to marry her. So obviously he has feelings for her. And if you watch Dragon Ball Z, it's clear that he does love her.
So if you back up a little bit earlier in...
Oh, does he? We'll get to that.
If you back up a little bit earlier in the manga to when he's actually fighting Chi-Chi. Okay, so Chi-Chi mentions that he had once promised her hand, and everybody else except Goku's like, what the fuck? And then Goku's like, what does that mean? And then Krillin's like, you idiot, taking a woman's hand means you're going to marry her. And then Yamcha's like, how'd you marry such a cute chick? And then, Yamcha says, Goku, did you understand what your promise means? You and this girl are going to live together for the rest of your lives. And then Goku's like, live together with you? Why would I promise that? I don't even know who you are.
That's why I love in a bridge where they're just like, Chi-Chi, you beautiful woman who lives in Goku's house. Because that's basically all she does. And it's what she's like, that's what I do.
He's like, I don't even know who you are. And he's like, and then he's like, tell me, please, because he's asking her, basically, why did I promise you that? And then she says, I'll tell you if you beat me in this battle. And then they have the rest of the fight, which is very short at that point, and then she reveals who she is, yada, yada, yada. So that's how it plays in the manga.
That's why I always describe my future wife. I always go, you're the beautiful woman who lives in my house.
That'll go over well.
Yeah, probably not, but whatever. I hope that none of my potential wives, if those exist, are listening to this.
Potential.
Because I got so many suitors just lining up outside my door.
Oh, yeah, fucking.
They're lining up, man.
From there to New Jersey, they're lined up. Fucking.
They're lined up all the way to Jersey. Okay. So, should he have said, I don't understand this, so I shouldn't do it? Now, again, he's an idiot. But is he enough of an idiot, and is he irresponsible enough of an idiot to go, because I promised, and because... shouldn't he have gone, we should, think about this. This is obviously a very big decision.
Well, okay, first of all, I don't think Goku has the mental capacity to think about that. We should probably take some time to think this out. Goku never thinks things out. He just does things.
Do you think he's playing it up like he's more of an idiot than he actually is, though?
Definitely not.
You don't think so? I think he is a little
especially
bit.
Not at this point. Again, this is still young.
Especially not in the manga, but I think in the anime, especially given the line... At least my heart does. I think he's playing up his idiocy a little bit more than he actually is.
If you look at the point in the timeline, this is still, though, a very young Goku.
But again, I'm basing this on he's just traveled the world at this point. So I'm assuming he's got to be light years smarter than he was in the early Dragon Ball.
I don't know about light years.
But he's obviously got more of a sense of how society works after that. I mean, obviously he spent all this time with Bulma and everybody, too, and they've taught him. But he seems to have a much better grasp of how the world works after that.
Here's the thing,
because,
though.
again, he's traveled it by himself and experienced it through his own eyes.
Of all the examples that we could come up with for why Goku may or may not be a shitty person, I don't think that this is one of them. And here's the reason why. Yes, the way that he became married is really fucked up. But
I think it's almost more of Chi-Chi's fucking fault than it is his. Like, she's kind of taking advantage of him.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Oh, okay, sorry, dude. I didn't mean to cut you off.
The fault lies entirely on Chi-Chi in this situation. She can clearly tell that he does not really understand what's going on.
And she's basically taking advantage of somebody who has some mental problems, who has legit brain damage.
She's like the teacher who screws the kid.
Does she know that at that point?
She's like the teacher who molests the kid, and the kid doesn't know what's going on.
Oh my god, that's so fucked up, but it kind of is, though. Does Chi-Chi know about the brain damage?
No, but I don't know if I don't think she knows.
Definitely not at that point, but does she ever even find out about it?
If she did, they never showed her finding out. She probably doesn't know specifically that he's had brain damage, but anybody who's ever interacted with Goku, which
probably knows that he has brain damage.
Which she had only done at two times at that point. She interacted with him
also fucked
when
up.
they were children, and she thought he was like fucking cute or whatever. And then, like, the next time she shows up to make him marry her, and it's like, oh, this guy's kind of an idiot. She
kind of, very much so an idiot.
I think she can clearly tell that he's not all there.
Right.
And so
yeah, I'm with you. I think that she's more at fault for that.
She's really taking advantage of the situation, whereas Goku, again, in this situation, he's just like, well, I made a promise.
Yeah, so okay, he's kind of doing the right thing there. Gotcha. Which, you know what? Ultimately, that's why I still like Goku as a character, that he is an idiot, and he is definitely ignorant and sort of very single-minded.
He's always trying to do the right thing.
He always does the right thing when it really counts. Again, I don't think that redeems him fully, especially in terms of him being a father.
Okay, I don't want to get off on another Doctor Who.
Yeah, we'll get to the father stuff later, but go ahead.
I don't want to get off on another Doctor Who tangent, but there's a moment in Doctor Who that I think applies here. There's a moment, I think it was last season. Okay, I'm definitely sure it was last season, when the Doctor asked Clara, "Am I a good man?" And she says, "I don't know, but I think you try to be, and I think that's what's important." And that pretty much sums up this discussion that we're having about Goku in a nutshell.
Indeed.
Even if he doesn't necessarily know how to be a good person, and he probably isn't if we examine him.
Which we're doing.
He at least tries to do what is right.
And I think that's why we like him and why he's so endearing.
On most occasions. And I think that's really relatable, too, because it's like, he's like a normal person.
Because we're not good people, so we relate to that.
Exactly.
So I'm totally with you. I mean, again, as much as we're giving him shit in this video, and as much as this is very much so like, Goku, you fucked up, we're also going, we love this character, and I think that's why it's such a burning question, and why it's bothered me so much since childhood that I can't be sure whether or not he is a good person, because I like him so much, and because he's such a role model to me. Because that's the other thing I'll say. I'll say this now. Goku is one of, like, my biggest role models in the world of fictional characters. Like, as much as I love Superman, I don't know if I look up to him as much as I do Goku. And I think part of that is just by virtue of where their power comes from. And again, it does not bother me at all that Superman's powers, he didn't train to get them. It doesn't bother me at all. I don't care.
It does me a little bit.
I don't care at all. He didn't choose that, though, so that's why it doesn't bother me.
Well, no,
Goku,
but it's just, I find, okay, I don't know if it, okay, bother me is probably the wrong choice of words. I just think that Goku's situation is a lot more interesting, because he has to work.
I will agree with that,
He has to work a lot harder for everything. His entire character is about, meeting an obstacle, which is beyond anything that he's ever encountered before, and then fucking training hard to overcome that obstacle.
Which is also what makes him so endearing also, is that, and I think ultimately, and we should have said this a lot earlier, we're already an hour in and we haven't even said this yet, I think the reason why Goku ultimately is it can be perceived as a bad person, is that he is very, very selfish. He is very self-centered, and everything that he does, ultimately, even when he's saving the world and helping people, at the end of the day, it is for his own self-gain, and throughout it, he's pretty much just thinking of how it can benefit his own situation, or at the very least get him out of another situation more quickly. And I think that, again, I don't think that makes what he does, the good things that he does, any less good. I just think that it makes him a lot more morally questionable.
Mm.
And we'll get into that a lot more when we get to the father stuff, but let's just wrap up on... Or, we might as well just jump to that now, because we pretty much wrapped up on Chi-Chi. She's at fault. Chi-Chi's definitely a bad person. We were all agreed on that, right?
And then she gets married, and she's just a fucking shrew for, like, ever. I'm like...
Oh, yeah, definitely. Until the Boo stuff, she's a shrew.
I'm like,
and the Boo stuff, she mellows out, like, a lot.
And I'm like, Chi-Chi, on the one hand, I like you, because you're kind of a badass. But on the other hand, fucking just calm down.
Just chill the fuck out.
We'll be fine.
Well, and again, she does over time. She mellows out during the Boo saga, or during the end of Cell at Boo. But we talked about this once too. The reason why Chi-Chi and Goku do end up kind of working out together is that they both offer what the other one doesn't have. Goku is laid back and
she offers
carefree.
the brain, and he offers
physical strength and good-naturedness.
Yes, together they are a whole person.
Yeah, and I think that's why Gohan ultimately turns out to be basically... I would say that Gohan is probably the best person in Dragon Ball Z from a character point of view, from a morality stance. He doesn't like fighting. He only saves people simply because he thinks that that's the way it's supposed to be, based on his dad, interestingly
To the point where he even emulates the tropes of a traditional superhero.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. He has a costume in the Buu Saga. So Gohan is definitely a good person. At least he becomes that over time. And we'll get to this too, he wasn't raised by Goku initially in his younger years. He was raised a lot by Piccolo. So
yeah, there's this whole thing on the internet about, is Piccolo more of a father to Gohan than Goku? And it's kind of a loaded question, because...
Well, it's also just like, objectively no, because Goku, at the end of the day, at the end of the canon stuff, spent more time raising Gohan than Piccolo did.
Right, Piccolo's there for, like, that time that Goku is
that year.
Waiting on the Saiyans. However,
then he dies and vanishes for another, year.
However, I would say that Piccolo, throughout the course of the show, is more of a role model to Gohan. He looks up to him a lot more than he ever seems to Goku.
I think he has more personal reasons for looking up to Piccolo than he does Goku, because his reasons for looking up to Goku seem sort of aesthetic, where it's like he's just like, he is my dad, therefore I must look up to him. And that's something that I think.
And there's some times later on where it's like, he's the strongest guy ever, and that's really cute.
Yeah, and that's the only reason that he has to look up to him for, because the other reasons are... Because when you start to look at Goku as a person, it gets kind of scary, as to how selfish and sort of, inept he is. And again, I think, again, we're breaking this down to more of, he's more inept than he is truly bad.
Yeah, that might be where we have to come down on this at the end.
So again, we'll develop that as because again we have to. I feel like we've barely scratched the surface on this, and we're already an hour in. So let's just dive right into the father stuff, shall we? Because that's where most of this comes in, and then we'll dabble into the fighting stuff during that, because it'll come up. So let's open with Z. Let's jump to Z.
Okay, is Goku a bad father? I'm gonna say yes, and
he is a horrible father.
And here's why. When we start out, he is a very good father. He shows up with the kid. He's like, everybody look at my kid. They're like, cool, he has a kid. Then...
Isn't this awesome?
Then kid's uncle shows up. Kid's uncle, kind of a dick, not gonna lie, kidnaps him, beats the shit out of Goku, pisses on him,
Pissed on him?
I hope they catch that saying. He takes Gohan away. Goku is distraught over this. He teams up with his old enemy Piccolo, who's doing this for other selfish reasons because he got his ass kicked by Raditz earlier on, and they go and they fight Raditz. That's a great start. Winds up sacrificing himself over the course of the battle. Great start. Good father right there. He starts to make some mistakes later on down the line, though.
Now, first things first, I want to talk about Goku being dead the first time, because Goku being dead is going to be a major part of this as well. So, both times Goku has died in canon and has gone to Otherworld, he tells his friends not to wish him back to life on purpose, because they could. Now, initially in the Saiyan saga...
He has a very good reason for doing this.
He does. His reason is pretty rock solid and selfless. Well, we'll get to that in a second. for why he wants to stay dead for a year until the Saiyans arrive, because he wants to go and train in Otherworld in order to become stronger, so that way he can fight the Saiyans off when they get there. That is, when you look at it, a pretty selfless reason to be dead.
Yeah, I mean, and it goes back to the father thing. He's doing something for the good of all mankind at that point, because he needs to train to be able to beat the Saiyans so that he can save the world, and by extension, the son that we are debating whether or not he is a good father to. So I have no problem with his decision to stay dead in that instance, in that
regard. Now, could he have potentially done more to make the transition from him being dead to Gohan being trained by Piccolo and being left without a father for a year? Oh yeah, definitely. He definitely could have, because it's inconsistent whether and how much Goku can communicate with the living world.
Yeah, he can't really much at all until he meets up.
Until he gets to King Kai.
Until he gets to King Kai. So there's no way he could have avoided the whole Gohan waking up in a strange place and finding fucking Piccolo there situation.
True. He had no control over that, definitely. So Gohan trains with Piccolo for a year, gets stronger, and then Goku's off in Otherworld. And we won't
you gotta wonder what Chi-Chi's doing during all this time.
Well, I love an abridged where fucking Krillin goes to tell her that Gohan has been kidnapped and Goku's dead, and she literally just has a complete psychotic break, and she just threatens to cut off Krillin's balls, and is trying to do it.
Great.
It's awesome.
Love it.
So, okay. So Chi-Chi during that time is having a mental breakdown. Goku off in Otherworld, again, it's sort of difficult to gauge the morality of his decisions and his actions up there, because he's just trying to get stronger to fight off the Saiyans, and blundering into learning about the weird-ass afterlife mythology of Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, he, goes to hell for a little bit and trains with, these two Germans, and then he, there's that time when he almost gets seduced by a snake woman
who wants to eat him in more ways than one.
A lot of strange things going on there.
A lot of weird shit.
That is one filler episode that has always stuck with me.
Snake Lady?
Yes.
Oh yeah, me too, definitely. I remember watching Dragon Ball Z Uncut when I was a kid. That fucking shit fucked with me. I was like, wait, so she wants to... Oh.
She wants to fuck him.
And then eat him.
Which, have your cake and eat it too, whatever.
I guess so. Bear that in mind, kids. Why get your dick wet when you can also get your palate wet?
I mean, yeah.
I mean, why not? Anyway.
Wonder if Saiyan tastes good.
Potential cannibalism aside.
Is it cannibalism, though? Because they are not of the same species. They are not of the same species.
Oh, no. No. Okay, yeah, in that instance, no. It's not really cannibalism.
It's actually just straight-up predation.
Yeah, well, she's also doing the thing that she has evolved, presumably, to do. So, yeah, definitely. That's not cannibalism, but I was talking about the joke that we were making.
And then it's really
in which case, yes, that's definitely cannibalism.
And then it's really confusing because she's a giant snake who looks exactly like Snake Way, and I was like, wait, is she the Road? Or is she...
Is the Road trying to eat Goku?
Because if so, that's one hell of a road.
Is that a metaphor for the futility of his actions? Anyway, is that the futility of all of our actions?
Is this about the folly of man?
Is this a Blue Oyster Cult song? Anyway.
Oh shit! I hope so.
Dragon Ball Z, according to Blue Oyster Cult, Goku's a really bad father.
Don't fear the Yama.
Okay. So Goku gets up to King Kai's place. King Kai trains him. King Kai is kind of a massive douchebag. But all of the trainers in Dragon Ball Z are kind of massive douchebags. Master Roshi, Piccolo.
I love how one of his training exercises is like, hey, you see that cricket over there? He's my friend. Here's a giant hammer. I want you to assault my friend.
Yup, exactly. Chase the monkey! Run around this planet really fast, train in 10 times normal gravity. So yeah, King Kai is kind of a dick. And do you think that any of his dickishness rubbed off on Goku in that year?
No, I don't think so.
Really? Because they're very similar personality-wise. They're both very carefree and very laid back. I think that's why they get along so well, why they kind of become so close as friends, and not just teacher and master.
They're also very different.
Teacher and student.
They're also very different in other ways. like Goku's very carefree when it comes to threats, and King Kai is not. Like King Kai will be like,
King Kai can be very neurotic.
King Kai will be like, don't fuck with that thing, and Goku's like, I'm gonna fuck with that thing, and then shit.
I'm gonna deck him in the schnoz.
I'm gonna deck him in the schnoz.
Best way to declare you're gonna fight somebody.
King Kai basically tells him, if you fight Frieza, it will go badly and people will die. And Goku's like, I'm gonna deck him in the schnoz, and that's.
And guess what? People die. People he likes die.
And then he decks him, and then he did deck him in the schnoz though. So I gotta give him credit.
He decked him in the schnoz multiple times.
So I gotta give him credit for delivering on his promises.
Indeed. So yes. So okay. So Goku's up with King Kai. Nothing really to report on there. He learns about his origins, whatever. Now, he gets back to Earth, fights the Saiyans, and this is where things potentially get hairy. Do you remember what he says to Gohan when he gets back?
Not specifically, no.
Because Gohan's been through some shit since Goku comes back from the dead. Piccolo dies, saving him, so obviously that fucks him up, because you've got the basically only father figure that he's had for the past year. He sees Tien get killed, Yamcha gets killed, Chaozu kills himself, Krillin gets fucked up.
Yamcha got pwned.
Yamcha got... did I mention that Yamcha dies?
I don't know if you did or not, I'm just saying.
Well, Yamcha dies and nobody cares.
Cyberman used self-destruct, Yamcha fainted.
Indeed.
To use the parlance of Pokemon.
Because I would assume, like, if you were a good father, like, regardless of what was going on, I mean, Vegeta and Nappa were being pretty patient as it was anyway. So you would have
they're very, what's the word I'm looking for? Polite in that regard, aren't they? It's like, yeah, we'll give you some time, whatever.
All of the Dragon Ball Z villains are. They're sort of just like, yeah, the fighting is more important than their ultimate goal of domination. And Vegeta and Nappa didn't really care about the Earth anyway. It might as well have been dead to them from the get-go. They could have blown it up whenever. They cared more about the Dragon Balls.
Yeah,
so.
Which they fucked up when they killed Piccolo.
They fucked up on massively. So yeah, Goku should have said, listen, give me just a second. I need to go over to my kid and go, bro, I am so fucking sorry for the shit you have gone through. I'm a terrible father. I'm sorry I died. I'm sorry that you had to be off with my enemy for a year and get trained. I'm so sorry for all the shit that you've been through. I will make this up to you. I will never, ever leave you again. That is what he should have said to him.
Well, that's an interesting question, though. Should he have? Because on the one hand, yeah, I see what you're saying. On the other hand, there is something to be said for his focus on the task at hand. And the greater good of, ultimately saving his son and everyone else's lives on Earth.
But I feel like he has more of a responsibility to Gohan. And also, again, in the situation, it's just like, he should know that they're being pretty fucking patient. So yeah, I know that he would be angry that a bunch of his friends just got killed.
Does he know that they're being patient, though? Because at the point in the battle that he shows up, he just sees a lot of corpses.
True. Oh yeah, when he shows up, they're about to fight Gohan, that's right.
Yeah, they're about to kick his ass. Actually, now that I think about it, this is actually a prime example of him actually doing something right as a father, because he shows up, saves Gohan's life, and he's like, "Get out of here! I'm gonna deck him in the schnoz."
True. If you really were the truly bad, if you truly were the really bad father, he would have been like, "I want to test your abilities, so go off and fight him." He does that later, though, so we'll get to that.
Yeah, we will definitely get to that.
So okay, fine there. I'm trying to think of the next instance where you can really consider Goku to be a bad person. Oh, I know! Let's talk about Vegeta, shall we? So Goku and Vegeta fight, Goku gets his fucking ass kicked, and through a combination of circumstances, Vegeta is defeated. Now, Krillin wants to kill Vegeta. He wants to use Yajirobe's sword to kill Vegeta and end his threat forever. Goku, on the other hand, is not. Infamously, Goku says, leave him alive. I think he could become a good person. And also, I don't remember the lines exactly, which is fucked up because I rewatched this fight recently, but I remember him basically going, besides, I want him to get stronger so we can fight again. Which is where we can start to develop this idea a lot more, because that's where it first really crops up. This whole idea of Goku letting villains live because he wants to see them get stronger so that way he can get stronger and fight them again one day.
Yeah.
Is that a poor choice?
Well,
does that make him a bad person at that moment?
In terms of results, it worked out in the long run.
In the very, 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 very long run, Because what did Vegeta do? I guess on Namek. Okay, so Gohan and Krillin would have been killed without Vegeta. Fair enough. So yes, in the long run, it did turn out for the best. But from a in the moment decision point of view, you gotta question Goku's rationale, because this guy wanted to kill his son and has every reason in the world to want to kill his son after this point. Why he doesn't, I don't remember. But on Namek, I mean. But as a father at that point, I've definitely got to give him points off, because again, Vegeta says he's going to come back and wipe them all out. So you know that he's definitely being a little bit reckless. Certainly, at the very, very least, he's being reckless.
He has there is precedent for this at this point, though. He does have a history of doing this sort of thing. At the end of his first fight with Piccolo Jr., at the 23rd, I believe, Tenkaichi Budokai, Piccolo, obviously, still a bad guy at this point, still very much wanting to kill Goku and take over the world, and Goku's like, hey man, good fight, here, have a senzu bean.
Yeah, that's right, I forgot about that, yeah.
And the rest of the people are like, Goku, the fuck? And, so yeah, this is a thing that he tends to do.
That's a little bit better, though, because at that point, Piccolo hadn't slaughtered millions of people.
No.
Because that's the difference between Piccolo and Vegeta. Piccolo's a bad guy primarily in heritage.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember, what did he do that was really evil before that?
Well, really, we gotta look at what did his dad do.
Yeah, but I'm saying Piccolo himself, Piccolo Jr.
Well, he hadn't really done anything at that point, because his plan was to take over the world after he got revenge for the death of King Piccolo. So his plan was, I'm gonna kill Goku, and then I'm gonna, deck everyone on Earth in the schnoz. Right,
exactly. So, Piccolo is different than Vegeta just because Piccolo is not evil. I think he's just misguided. I think he's very much so a bad person for the same reason that Goku is. He just doesn't know any better. He wasn't raised by anybody, so he's socially inept and also has moral shortcomings because he doesn't know any better. And as he learns, I would say that Piccolo is kind of a better person than Goku, because I think that he learns from his mistakes a lot more quickly and a lot more effectively.
Piccolo is a morally outstanding individual. And
yes, I would definitely say so.
He's like the Batman of the DBZ universe.
Yes, definitely.
If Goku is Superman, then Piccolo is Batman, I would say.
And Vegeta is Guy Gardner.
Sure. Vegeta is Zod, if Zod had later on turned into a good guy.
Which happens in one continuity, I think?
Does it? I can't keep up with DC anymore.
There is a version where Zod is Superman, though. I don't think that's the version but that's an alternate universe where Zod crash lands on Earth and becomes Superman. I don't really think that that's the same thing, but whatever. You're right. It's a good point. Good job, Dylan.
It's what I do.
So in that instance, I think that Goku is, again, precedent for it, and it's definitely good of him to go, I'm not going to kill this guy, because I don't think that he's bad enough to warrant it. But again, I also don't condone murder as a way to solve any problem. But I just think that in terms of immediate danger to his son and his friends, he probably should have let Krillin kill him. Yeah. Also because he doesn't know what Vegeta's going to do immediately after that anyway. For all he knows, he can fucking go up into the stratosphere and go, hey, Frieza, blow up this fucking planet, and then just have that done. I don't think he knows about Frieza at that point, to be fair, but no. I'm just saying that...
He knows because of what Raditz told him, that there's some sort of an intergalactic organization that deals in the destruction and sell of planets.
Right.
But Frieza has not been mentioned by name.
He, at the very least, has to suspect that Vegeta could do massive damage immediately after that. So again, reckless.
Yes.
At the very least. Alright, so, Goku is crippled, goes to the hospital, and the Namek stuff starts. I'm trying to think. Father stuff. What does he do?
I don't think Goku does anything morally questionable in terms of being a father. during the Namek situation, he's
trapped in a hospital bed. What can he do?
He's trapped in a hospital, and then he shows up, and he does a bunch of very, good things. He defeats the Ginyu Force, and then immediately after that, he is again trapped.
And also refuses to kill them at first.
And then again, he's trapped in a medical apparatus
And thus, a trope was born.
Indeed. So he doesn't really have a lot of opportunity to do faulty things during the Namek stuff. And then,
again, I would just say, keeping with what I said earlier with the Saiyan stuff, it's just a matter of his actual talking to Gohan. After all these things happen to him, then he really should sit down with him more and go, "Hey, I know this is fucked up." And this could also happen off screen too.
But that goes back to his unfortunate upbringing. He knows that does he really know that it's fucked up? It's no more fucked up than his childhood was. So his frame of reference is a bit off.
Okay, that's true. But he didn't enjoy that stuff as a kid, though, right?
He seemed pretty.
He didn't enjoy being kidnapped by Oolong and dressed in women's clothes and brought back to his castle, did he?
Well, that raises a whole other bunch of questions about Goku's.
I guess so. I guess that raises some interesting questions about Goku's sexuality, which I also think he would have no idea about because he doesn't care. I wonder if he's only fucked Chi-Chi the 2 times.
The moment when Gohan is conceived is I imagine, quite the conversation that we never got to see.
I know, right? It would have been nice to get a moment where Chi-Chi's just like, yeah, that goes in there, Goku. But you don't think Bulma at one point while they were hanging around was just like, alright, Goku, go ahead, put it in?
No, I don't.
Really?
Bulma was all about Yamcha back then.
True. Okay, fair enough.
She was all up on his wolf fang dick.
Oh, that's true. That would have hurt too. That used to mean something back then.
That's a technique name that should exist. Wolf fang dick.
Wolf fang dick. It's Yamcha's fucking way he enters, man. Okay.
It is about as enjoyable as it sounds.
Which is subjective. All right. So again, I think you're right. It's all a matter of he doesn't really understand. I don't think he understands what a normal child. He obviously doesn't understand what a normal childhood is supposed to be. So he definitely would not be able to relate to Gohan on the level of, you're not supposed to live like this is fucked up, and I apologize for that. But do you think he at the very least knows that there exists outside of that a normal life? I think at that point he must. He's been living with Chi-Chi for 5 years, who's been raising Gohan under normal circumstances.
I think he understands that there is a way that normal people go about things. He doesn't know how that is, and he can't possibly be that way because he doesn't know how to be a person. Is essentially,
even if he doesn't know how to be that way, he must at the very least understand that Gohan maybe not wants it, but that's what Chi-Chi wants for him, and that's what is expected for Gohan to get.
Mm-hmm.
So I at the very least think that he should be more sympathetic to that, and the fact that he isn't, again, makes him kind of a crappy father.
There's a lot of questions regarding how much of this shit Goku actually does understand.
Yes, absolutely. That is definitely a huge question. How much does Goku actually? How much is Goku able to function in actual society? Because his intelligence varies depending on the scene.
Because we never,
and again, I will always
ever
say that Goku,
see him functioning in normal society. No, we see him
almost never.
We see him go shopping, and he drives cars once badly.
Well, he drives later on in the series too, and he does it perfectly.
Yeah, I don't know when he learned because he didn't get his license.
Well, he learns in those 3 years.
Fucking continuity error.
No. There's an episode. I think it's the episode that's called Dende's Dragon. There's an episode where Goku, Chi-Chi, Krillin, and Gohan are palling around, hanging out around the time of Gohan's birthday, and this is the time where the Cell games are about to start, and Cell fights off the military. And at one point,
good shit.
And yeah, that stuff's awesome. That's like the best DBZ stuff. That and the Frieza stuff. But in that sequence, Krillin expresses shock at like Goku's able to drive, and she's just like, yeah, he learned in those 3 years, and it's shocking that the driving instructor gave him another chance after that first time, but he did, and now he's got his license and he knows how to drive.
Oh,
so he did. So it's not a continuity fuck up. It's
just not remember that.
They explained it in 2 seconds, and it doesn't really.
Been rewatching Cell recently. Haven't made it back to that point yet.
So I'm sorry I spoiled that for you.
It's okay. Fucking asshole.
Worst. So yes, Goku definitely does not know how to relate to people on that level. So, again, you can't really call him a bad person for that. You can just call him unequipped to be a father, certainly. We can definitely say that, but it's just questionable how much of it is his fault and how much of it is people expecting him to act a certain way when it's impossible for him to do so given how he was raised. So again, Chi-Chi is the most at fault in that instance as well.
Yeah, she should be taking more of a lead in this parenting thing. She knows how fucked up Goku is.
And she is, I think, at least at first.
She tries to, but Gohan's very rebellious in that regard.
Which I like about Gohan. I like how rebellious he is.
Yeah, early on. He's all like, I want to be like Mr. Piccolo and fucking be in the wasteland and brood.
And sing songs about sentient school supplies. Do you remember that?
Oh God, yes.
Strongest. I remember when I was a kid and I saw that for the first time. I was like, this is not Dragon Ball Z, because that was when Dragon Ball Z was still sort of like Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
So shit like that still happened. Like that shit would not happen in like the Buu
And now
Saga.
we're getting back to that shit.
Yeah, a little bit.
There's a lot of comedy relief in Super in the recent movies. That's very Dragon Ball-esque, which I kind of like to return to that. We've had a lot of...
I don't mind at all, yeah.
We've had so much of serious DBZ. And
well, serious just in terms of, like, there isn't, like, those weird, like, over-the-top joke moments. Like, it's more sort of grounded humor, which is weird for Dragon Ball.
I don't know if the normal series was ever intended to go as unfunny as it did, but it did at some point, and that's the history that we're living with.
Word. All right, so again, we're really far in, so let's start sort of picking up.
You want to talk about the next example of him being a bad person? Because I'll tell you the next fucking example of him being a bad person.
All right, you jump in, you tell me.
So Namek is over. Frieza is dead. They think Goku is dead. And they're like, hey, Dragon, bring Goku back to life. And,
I forgot about this. Go ahead.
And the Dragon's like, hey, Goku's actually still alive. And they're like, oh, well, can you bring him here? And Goku's like, nah, not going to do that. I'm going to hang out on Planet Yard Rat with these weird crab-looking things and learn how to teleport, because that'll be awesome. Bye.
I've got the next example, too, that immediately follows that. So, you can make the argument, I think, that Goku stayed on Yardrat because he wanted to learn the instant transmission and get stronger. And we also know that in that time he learns how to master the Super Saiyan transformation.
Yes. However, that still doesn't alleviate this being an argument for him being bad, especially in terms of being a father. Not. Because he's like,
he's definitely.
He's like, sorry, son, I'm gonna hang out with these aliens. It's gonna be so cute. And then he does that.
And also, there's no immediate threat to Earth at that point either.
Right.
That would like necessitate him learning those techniques.
He finds out later on that Frieza's still alive and is going to be returning to Earth, but I don't think he knew this at that time.
I'll get to that in a second, because that's where the next example... The Cell Saga is really where he starts to show his true colors as a really bad dad and kind of a dick. But, or not a dick, just not a good person.
He's just an absent-minded, not professor. He's an absent-minded individual.
He's an absent-minded absentee. I lost my point. Okay. So he could master the Super Saiyan transformation on Earth easily. Instant transmission, I get, but again, you don't need that. But let's say that he did need it. Let's say to, I don't know, get to Earth faster to stop Frieza from fucking killing people. So in Dragon Ball Z,
he explains to Trunks that he was about to use instant transmission,
and he didn't because he was like, everything seems fine. It's like, but you don't know that, Goku. You're gonna leave your friend's fucking hands in the hands of this fucking weirdo who happens to know how to turn Super Saiyan? What?
I think the case can be made that maybe he didn't really fully have control over the instant transmission technique at this point, and so...
No, he makes it blatantly obvious that he could have been there in a second. He says that. I could have been here in 2 seconds if I had to, if I wanted to. It's like, why didn't you then, you fucking piece of shit? You cocky piece of crap?
Because he can't be there at the beginning of the fight.
Goku was also super cocky at that point anyway. And I think that was partially an intentional character flaw that was given to him in the Cell Saga. Mm-hmm. Because he's super cocky after just coming off the Super Saiyan transformation and learning the instant transmission, that when he comes to Earth, he's acting like a real dick. To Vegeta, to Gohan, to Krillin, to everybody. He's just like, look at me, I can teleport and I can turn my hair blonde. Look at me. So I think there was a little bit of intentional sort of like, Goku's different now, maybe not in a good way, but it's not developed enough to really be a good story progression. So I think it still qualifies as us going, he's a bad person because he can be cocky, and we'll get to the overconfidence thing in a couple minutes when we talk about Resurrection F.
I have another example of that really goes toward the bad father thing. But continue what you're talking about the whole yard rat thing before we get into that.
Well, you can pretty much go ahead, because the only other thing I just wanted to say was that, again, as far as I remember, there is no moment, and again, it's been a while since I've watched that part of the Cell games, or the Android Saga, but there's no moment where Goku sits down and explains to Gohan that we see, like, hey, listen, sorry I was off in space for a year, or for however long is in between, because it's inconsistent, however long he was off in space.
I wish this was the actual dialogue, or however long I was gone, because it's really inconsistent.
Yeah, word. It's, who knows? Toriyama doesn't know what's up.
Son, we are characters in a poorly written show, and this is...
this is our lives. So, yeah, he's a dick because he just let Trunks handle it when he would have been way more apt to. Because obviously he's stronger than Trunks at that point, definitely. Like, he proves that to him. So, what...
And he has the combat experience.
He's also fought and defeated Frieza before.
Yeah.
So...
He knows Frieza's shtick.
And also, this makes him a bad person, too. Letting somebody else clean up your mess is bad. That is a unquestionably morally bankrupt thing to do. And that is exactly what Goku was letting Trunks do in that instance. Because the only reason Frieza is going to Earth in the first place is because he thinks that's where Goku is and he wants revenge. Or no, he knows that Goku's off in space, but he wants to go there to get revenge on Goku for defeating him. So... fuck you, Goku. You're a dickhead, definitely, unquestionably, in that instance. I think that's the worst that we've seen of him so far, as we've talked about.
Well, I don't know.
All right, we'll go ahead and bring up your next example, then.
Okay. So, there's some time during the Cell Saga when Goku and Gohan's relationship really improves. They're in the hyperbolic time chamber, they're training together.
I cannot wait till they get to that stuff in a bridge.
They're bonding and shit. Everything's great. Then they get to the Cell games. I understand completely why Goku...
Oh, okay, we're going to this already, okay.
I understand completely why Goku has to turn the reins of the fight over to Gohan. He cannot defeat Cell in that instance. It's kind of shitty that he has to put his son in danger in that way, but there's...
And under the immense amount of pressure that he does, because I have rewatched that stuff very recently, and my God, the level of pressure he puts on that kid is insane.
Indeed. No pressure, son, but you gotta save the world.
You have to defeat this monster that I can't defeat. I'm being, like, your role model and stance as the most powerful fucker in the universe in your mind. I can't do it. Go ahead and give it a shot, son.
Yeah.
Life-shattering. World-shattering.
But, okay, so he's in this kind of shitty situation. He has no choice at that point but to let Gohan take over the fight. But you know what he does? Just to make it an even fight? He gives Cell a fucking senzu bean.
Oh my God, I fucking forgot about that. Oh, okay. Yeah. Alright, there's a bunch of instances that I need to get into that, yeah.
A senzu bean.
That
would be like if you found your child, right? And somebody was trying to murder them with a knife. And you were like, hey, your knife's looking a little dull. Use mine. Like, what the...
If Crocodile Dundee's kid was being threatened with a knife, and the mugger's knife looked like crap, and Crocodile Dundee was like, oh no, that's not a knife. He is a knife. Go ahead and threaten him with this. That's what that is.
Exactly.
Is Crocodile Dundee a bad father? Not as bad as Goku.
It's a hypothetical situation. Yes.
Even in that third movie, he's a pretty shitty dad. He's going off showing his kid venomous spiders and shit. I think that's what happened in that movie. Anyway, not irrelevant.
The events of Crocodile Dundee. I remember that was a thing as a kid, and thinking he...
No, not only that, Dylan. I remember the events of Crocodile Dundee in Los Angeles.
I vaguely remember thinking, that guy's kind of like Steve Irwin.
Yeah, that's what everybody thought. Everybody thought he was the same fucking person.
Yeah, I never thought that, but...
I never thought that either, because I'm not an idiot.
Well...
Goku would have thought that, though.
Not in that regard.
Fuck you.
No, thank you.
There's a couple instances in that I think we could point to in terms of Goku being a bad dad. Number two, after the senzu bean thing, which is major, but it's also just like, not only does Goku want Gohan to destroy the world, but he wants him to do it legit. where he's like, no, you have to beat him at his full power, otherwise it's not fair.
Which is why he gives him the senzu bean.
Right.
It's like, Goku, maybe Gohan isn't as interested in being sporting as you are.
Well, also, Gohan doesn't like to fight. That's the whole point of why 16 has to fucking die for Gohan to go Super Saiyan 2. Because Gohan is holding back his power throughout the whole fight because he knows that if he does let go, he's going to kill Cell, and he doesn't want to do that because he's actually a good person, unlike his asshole dad, and doesn't like to hurt people. So that's why 16 has to give up his own life, so that way he'll be motivated to turn into a Super Saiyan 2 and kill Cell. Now, once Gohan turns into a Super Saiyan 2... You could make
the argument that if Goku hadn't given Cell that senzu bean, he might not have had the energy required to, A, kill 16. 16's death's on Goku's head now. B... Oh,
16's death is definitely on Goku.
B, make those fucking Cell Juniors that then went and fucking fucked everybody up.
Including Goku, so he fucked himself. He got karma in that regard.
It is entirely his fault that King's Planet had to get destroyed, and depending on your continuity, thus releasing Bojack...
Oh my god, King Kai, he's definitely a bad person in that regard.
Goku fucking, in that one decision, because he wanted it to be a fair fight, couldn't just let Gohan, take over the fight from there and fucking win. He had to be like, here's...
Also, Cell, it wasn't like Cell was like, oh, I'm not strong enough to continue. It's like, no, he was like, I'll fucking fight your kid, whatever.
Yeah.
He doesn't give a shit.
He wasn't impaired, he was just, a little bit...
He was a little bit winded.
Yeah. But no, that's not good enough.
He was just sort of like, just give me a minute to catch... I don't need the bean, just give me a minute to catch my breath.
I need some fucking air.
I need to have a smoke break. Just give me a second. I need to go smoke some weed.
I can't breathe.
I need to go have a Big Mac in order to regain my strength. So, also in that regard, what was I about to say? Shit. Oh, okay. Hypocrite, too. This is what also makes Goku a bad person. I don't like hypocrites. It bothers me. And Goku's a hypocrite because he also gives Gohan shit for not taking out Cell instantly for doing the same fucking thing that he did. For giving Cell the chance to power up, because Gohan, after turning into a Super Saiyan 2, becomes a lot more like Goku in that he wants to beat Cell at his best, and he holds back a little bit.
Yeah, because Gohan kind of has the same sort of cockiness increase when he goes Super Saiyan 2.
That very Saiyan-esque quality,
when he goes Super Saiyan 2, that happened to Goku when he went Super Saiyan.
Exactly.
And it would make sense if it had been characterized a little differently, like if Goku had been like, hey, you probably shouldn't be so merciful to Cell, you should probably just finish this, because...
Well, no, he does. To be fair, he does say that, but my problem is that...
No. Here's the thing. If he had worded it a little bit differently, if he had not just said, you shouldn't do that, if he had said, you shouldn't do that, and here's why, because I did that, and it didn't really turn out well.
And it turned out with 16 getting killed and everything. So yeah, you fucked. So we both. It would be nice if Goku took some fucking blame.
It would, yeah, if he acknowledged
in the show, does he ever accept some fucking responsibility for his actions?
He had acknowledged the fact that, hey, you probably shouldn't let Cell live right now because I tried to do that with Frieza, and then Frieza came back to Earth and tried to kill all you guys, and it's not a good idea.
And we'll get to that. I guess we can just get into that now. Then, is there anything else you want to say about the fight with Cell and Goku being a bad person or father in that regard? Because we already kind of mentioned the King Kai thing, so that kind of speaks for itself. I mean, Goku could have teleported him anywhere.
There are long-reaching implications for that one decision that Goku makes. And then he fucking dies, and he's like, I'm not going to come back to Earth. And this time it's the stupidest bullshit reason ever.
Oh, yeah, let's just get into it then. Yeah, go ahead.
It's like, they try to play it off as this, like, I'm passing the torch to the next generation. And it comes off more like, I don't want to come back to Earth. That would be hard.
Well, okay. The explanation that Goku gives in the series, once Shenron is brought back and once the Dragon Balls are given the new ability of they can bring two people back at once or whatever, and also, Shenron still can't do that. He still can't bring people back more than once. They're going to use the Namekian Dragon Balls to do that, to bring Goku back. And what happens is Goku communicates with them through King Kai and goes, no, guys, don't. That's a bad idea. And this is where I think Goku gets a little tiny bit of leeway with this. He goes, the last two times the Earth was almost destroyed by the androids in Cell and by Frieza, it was entirely my own fault. And this is the only place where I'm going to give him some credit for taking some fucking responsibility for his own actions. He says that, okay, I am sort of more of a threat than I am I'm doing more bad than I am good in that I'm attracting all these really dangerous people to Earth, and my friends are getting hurt because of it, and I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to be responsible.
Well, every threat that had appeared in DBZ up to that point, with the exception of Garlic Jr., was there because Goku was there. Raditz came to Earth because Goku had failed in his mission, and then that snowballed into Vegeta and Nappa coming to Earth, and then Frieza came to Earth.
Frieza only finds out about the Dragon Balls on Namek because of...
Frieza comes to Earth later on because of the fight that he has with Goku. And then there's this whole Cell thing going all the way back to the Red Ribbon Army. So, yes, all of the threats that have appeared in Dragon Ball Z have been because of Goku.
And, which is why I think the show would have benefited a lot from ending at that point, which it was supposed to.
But if Goku really thinks about it, there were some threats before that it didn't come about because Goku. They just came about because that's the way the world works. Sometimes threatening shit happens. Case in point, the Red Ribbon Army. Goku had nothing to do with the fact that the Red Ribbon Army existed. They were just this evil force that was trying to take over the world. King Piccolo gets resurrected off screen. Although you could make the argument that Goku is partly responsible for King Piccolo getting resurrected, because King Piccolo gets resurrected by Emperor Pilaf and his two henchmen after they had been foiled in capturing the Dragon Balls several times by Goku. But that's more of an indirect result as opposed to like the more direct results that happened in DBZ.
But can you also make the argument that Goku doesn't want to come back? More so because he knows that the training that he's going to get in Otherworld is going to be fucking sick.
I think you can, because the very next thing we have is the fucking Otherworld tournament. He's like hanging out,
the other thing is that Goku,
Nolibu and all those motherfuckers.
And again, having just rewatched this stuff recently, Goku also points out that I need to move on to the next adventure. I need to explore Otherworld. That's what I want to do. That's my dream. He says that. He doesn't say those exact words. That's what he says to Gohan. He's like, listen, this is pretty fucking awesome. I'm staying here. So fuck you. He doesn't, again, not those words, but that's what he says basically. And I
wish Goku would say so fuck you.
I wish he would just be blatantly honest. I would like him even better if he was just blatantly honest. As opposed to trying to look like a good father.
Like if he was an asshole, but he was supposed to be a likable asshole, like that would work better.
Yeah, if he was a little bit more like Vegeta in that way, where it's like we understand that he's got a lot of issues, but we're able to look past some of them because we like him because we like him.
Goku was
more of a Tony Stark type.
If Goku was like a Walter White-esque character.
He is though. He is very much so Walter. I was just thinking that too. I was just thinking, the more we talk about Goku, the more he sounds like Walter White, where he makes all these really horrible things that he does appear to be for his family and for the betterment of mankind, but when in reality, it's just for really selfish reasons.
Well, at least by the end.
By the end it is. So, let's move on then. So yeah, that is, the Cell Saga, I think, is Goku at his absolute worst. And that's the most we ever see of him as a father to Gohan. So, I think that at least in terms of Goku raising Gohan, his part in that, bad. He fucked up. He's a bad father. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, and it starts with that decision of his not to come back home from Yard Rat.
Yes.
How shitty would
and just snowballs from there.
How shitty would he have felt if Garlic Jr. had succeeded in destroying the world?
That's right. I forgot about the Garlic Jr. stuff. He missed the threat in there. That was his fault, though, too.
Yeah.
Partially, anyway.
Well, it's more.
I guess Piccolo can sort of take the blame for that, too, and Kami.
Well, Gohan, technically, is the one who defeated Garlic Jr. in the first time.
Oh, yeah, he did, didn't he?
And the second time. So.
Oh, yeah, he did.
Garlic Jr. was really Gohan's
first arch nemesis.
Yeah. Everybody thinks Cell was like Gohan's big, like, I just defeated a bad guy, but actually Garlic Jr. popped that cherry long before that.
Oh, let's not use popping cherries as a metaphor for Kid Gohan. But
very young Kid Gohan.
Very, very young Kid Gohan. Toddler Gohan. So yeah, Goku, crappy father to Gohan. So I guess we better start talking about Goten then, right? No, I think that we're going to kind of start to wrap up soon, because again, we're like 2 hours in.
Crappy father to Gohan, absentee father to Goten.
For 7 years. So there's a 7-year gap between the Cell stuff and the Boo stuff, And in that time, Goku's off in another world, no communication with the other Z fighters, as far as we know.
I assume he doesn't even know that he has knocked Chi-Chi up.
No, he has no idea that Goten exists.
I mean, obviously he knows that they had relations, but he doesn't know that a child has come.
He must have known that they fucked. I mean, unless Chi-Chi raped him. I mean, I wouldn't put that on. I wouldn't put that past her either. But Goten is a little bit of a weird case because Goten didn't know his father and only knew him through Gohan talking about him to him. So I would think that Goten would have an even better view of his father than Gohan does, because you got to imagine that deep down, and again, as far as I remember, Gohan never talks about it, he must have some pent-up rage against his dad for deciding to stay dead, because that is a fucked up thing for a kid to have to go to. Sorry, son, I can't come back and raise you for the betterment of the world, but in reality, it's because I want to get some sick-ass training.
It's
like, that would fuck him up.
It's like, they did something with this in DBZ Abridged. Not with...
We've done lots of stuff with it. I can't wait to see go further with it.
Not with Goten, but with Trunks being trained by future Gohan.
Yeah.
There's great shit in there.
Yeah, Gohan's constantly just like he says at one point, Piccolo is the father that I never had.
There are moments when Bulma's like, "Your dad was great," and Gohan's like, "Yeah."
And there's a moment where Gohan's eating a bunch of food, Goku style, and Bulma goes, "Oh, you're just like your dad," and Gohan's like, "In what regard?" Well, he's dressed just like him, looks just like him, he's eating just like him. And I think that's also part of the interesting part of Abridged is that Gohan is also a little bit more morally ambiguous in that movie because he's kind of a dick to Trunks.
Yeah.
And seems to be a little bit he seems to be taking out some of his childhood aggression on Trunks.
Well, it works out perfectly, though, because he's training Trunks in the same way that Piccolo trained him. And this was a thing even in normal DBZ. Piccolo trained him very harshly.
Yeah, well, they bring that up, too.
Abridged is not exaggerating when they just have, like, Piccolo, like, attack him and go, "Dodge!" Like, that's essentially, that's what happened.
That's exactly what Piccolo did, yeah.
Piccolo at one point's like, "Hey, you're just going to wander the desert for a while. Is that cool?" And then Gohan's like, "Eh." And then he, like, befriends a robot that he finds in a cave. It's harsh-ass training.
Yeah, and Goku and Goku doesn't really get to sit down with Gohan and really train him properly into the hyperbolic time chamber one-on-one. Because even in the stuff in the 3 years where they're training for the androids, Piccolo's there, so even still. Goku 101 with Gohan training-wise didn't happen into the hyperbolic time chamber.
And never happened again, I don't think.
The Z-Sword, no, that's not 101. So, never again, you're right. Gohan trained Goten 101 before the World Tournament in the Buu Saga.
Yeah, Gohan...
Is Gohan a better father to Goten than Goku is? Goten's harder to gauge, though, to be fair.
Goten... I don't know about Goten.
Goten is hard to gauge because A, I don't really like him, and B, we don't see a lot of Goku actually raising him, or at least we haven't yet. Because we'll probably see a lot more of it in Dragon Ball Super, depending on how much they skip around time once the Resurrection F stuff is over.
God, him and Kid Trunks are so annoying.
Oh.
I'm like, it breaks my heart, because I'm like, Kid Trunks, you were so cool in that alternate future.
And I mean, again, we've talked about this before, but they're completely different characters, because, Trunks...
You would have been better off if your entire family had been killed, because that was
if Vegeta was dead, your life would be so much better.
Because that is such a cooler character.
Yeah, definitely.
He had a sword that he couldn't have gotten the way that you do in that movie, because it doesn't make any logical sense, but whatever. Toriyama.
That bird.
That bird. That bird, though.
That bird, though. So yeah, Goku is definitely, you're right, absent father to Goten, and we haven't seen enough of him raising Goten to sort of gauge. I mean, he's not off to a great start though. The first day he meets his second son, he's already like, "Okay, Goten, I'm putting the entire pressure of the world on your shoulders." So not only was I unable to defeat Majin Buu,
hey son, who I've never met, who trusts me implicitly. You're gonna...
Because he's fucking 7 years old.
And has been told nothing but great stories about how his dad saved the world on multiple occasions.
Even though he always had help and was always sort of morally ambiguous in doing it. I'm gonna leave you with this green guy to train you how to do this technique that I've only shown you once. And...
To be fair, though.
Then you're gonna save the world.
To be fair, though, he had to go back to the other world. He didn't
have a choice.
He didn't have any option at that point.
Even though I don't
Which, you know,
understand
that
why
wouldn't have
Baba
happened.
can't.
That wouldn't have happened if he hadn't made that shitty fucking decision earlier on to stay in the other world.
It's still his fuck. He could. Why doesn't he just call up the Namekians and go, "Hey, I really need to come back to life right now. Can you make that happen for me?" Like, why not? Also,
It's like, damn it, Goku, you had another chance to be a good dad. You fucked it up, man.
Also, why doesn't Baba just go, "Hey, obviously shit not be cool. All right, go ahead and stay for another couple hours." Like, she can totally do that. Why doesn't she do it?
It's totally fucked up too, because he winds up later on being much more of a father and like mentor figure to Oob, and Oob ain't his kid.
Oh God, we're gonna have to talk about Oob too.
Oob is the reincarnation of his like mortal enemy. Like, he is not his fucking kid, and he's like, I'm gonna take you off and train you. You know, like I never did.
I'm gonna abandon my family again, and go on, because that's the other thing. He abandons his family constantly. So
It's like, hey, Gohan.
He's definitely a horrible husband, right?
It's like, hey, Gohan, I'm gonna abandon you again to go train this other guy who's not even my kid. But, you know, I'll come back later and have a vaguely positive relationship with your daughter, so whatever.
Yeah, true. Definitely a better He's definitely a good grandpa, though. GT not taking into account.
Yeah.
I mean, again, putting a toddler into the World Tournament, he knows, though, that she can handle herself, so I guess it's fine.
She is where he was during the events of Dragon Ball, I think, like, strength-wise, like...
Yeah, so I think that's definitely okay, because, again, he knows that she's able to hold her own with him, so, of course, she'll be able to hold her own with adults.
She's a quarter Saiyan.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. So what's the next, in the Buu saga, what's a good instance, aside from what we just talked about with the fusion stuff, of Goku being a bad person? Okay, here's a morally ambiguous thing that he did, and I don't want to talk about this for too long, though, because it's sort of small. When Goku and Vegeta are fighting together, this is post Vegito, and this is when Kid Buu blows up the Earth. Rather than saving his own children, Goku saves Mr. Satan, Dende, and the dog, and Buu, and good Buu, as opposed to saving he and Vegeta's own children with the instant transmission.
Yeah, you know, I think the idea is...
But that's brought up and they explain that, though, so I'm not really going to get into it now.
He has a compulsion and a desire to sort of save everybody. And so when he sees Hercule and Buu and them, like, fucking cowering over there, and he even gets this look on his face in that moment, like, shit. It's like he has to compulsively try to save everyone, even though realistically he can. And so he stops to pick them up and doesn't...
That's very Superman, I think.
And doesn't quite make it to his own children.
Which Vegeta fucking gives him hell for when they get to Otherworld.
Yeah.
He punches him.
Vegeta is a way better dad than Goku is. In that regard.
Yeah, okay, in that regard, he's definitely more... I mean, Chi-Chi also brings this up, that he's more of a reliable father, certainly.
He dotes a lot more on Trunks than Goku ever did on his kids.
See, we wouldn't even have to do a video about this for Vegeta, though, because Vegeta is definitely a bad person. It's just a matter of how much of a bad person he is.
Yeah, but, you know, by the end of the show, he's a decent enough person, and
he's an okay guy at the end of Dragon Ball Z, and in GT, he's also okay.
And he, like, hangs out with his kid and promises to take him to an amusement park.
And then ends up taking him on a shitty family vacation where they eat octopus.
Yeah, that's a Super reference for those of you who haven't watched Super yet. You should go do that.
Well, you don't have to rush to do it. You're not missing much, but you'll get to it. We'll tell you when it gets good, then you can go ahead and do it.
Really, I mean... when does it get good, specifically? Well, you gotta watch the first couple episodes anyway, because there's...
You're gonna have to watch it eventually, but I'm just saying, I don't... Personally, this is my own opinion. I know you have a little bit of a different opinion. I haven't seen anything yet that's made me go, if you're a Dragon Ball fan, you must see this. I'm just like, not yet. Give it a chance.
I really like the stuff in the first few episodes where they're like, here's where the characters are now, and let's see them just sort of dicking around and being people. Like, that's cool.
Yeah, the stuff with Vegeta on vacation is definitely worth it for if you're a fan of Vegeta's character, which I am. So that's definitely.
I'm just excited for what's going to happen when they get done retelling the events of Resurrection F.
Yeah, can't wait.
Then they're going to get into the Champa stuff, and there's some interesting things going on there that I don't fully know all of yet.
Has Champa not been a thing yet?
I think, if I remember correctly, he's appeared in some episodes. But see, what eventually happens, and I know this from reading the manga version, he like shows up on Beerus's planet and like he proposes, and I'm not sure exactly how this is going to work because this is the last thing I read. He like proposes the idea of like them having a tournament between people from their two respective dimensions.
Oh, and obviously Beerus is going to pick Goku.
Yeah, so I mean, there's interesting things that's going to be happening with Choppa, and there's been this whole thing where him and his lieutenant Vados have been traveling around Beerus's universe and like destroying planets because they're looking for some sort of orbs or something. So there's something.
The Dragon Balls?
I don't know. Something's going on, and
The Black Star Dragon Balls are going to make a comeback. Would you be okay with that if they brought back the Black Star Dragon Balls?
no.
Yeah, me neither.
At least not at least not if the rules are the same.
No, they wouldn't be, because Toriyama would be like, what? GT, what's that?
The Black Star Dragon Balls were so stupid. It's the most
So what was it
It's the most contrived thing in the world. It's like, we need to find a plot device that'll make Goku go into space. Okay, so there's these new Dragon Balls, and instead of just scattering across Earth, they scatter across the fucking galaxy. And normally you would be like, okay, then we'll just never reclaim them, but you kind of have to, because if you don't in a year, the planet's going to blow up. Like, what?
Right. Exactly.
A, why would Kami make those? B, why would Kami make those?
Oh, yeah, they were from Earth, right?
Yeah. Or I guess technically Dende must have made them. Why the fuck did Dende do that?
Yeah. Where the fuck did they come from? Because I don't remember.
Pilaf
says
Pilaf
that they're from before Kami and Piccolo broke apart.
They break into Kami's lookout and they find the dread. They're just up there in Kami's lookout in like a secret room or some shit.
Right. So what are they though? Where did they come from? What's the dragon in that?
I don't know. I got
It's the Red Shinron.
I got to rewatch Dragon GT.
Yeah, because again, we do want to do a video on it at some point, so we should both rewatch it. We go back and rewatch it and go like, all right, this isn't total garbage, but
The one interesting thing about DBGT is that we have more than one Shinron. So we have traditional Shinron, and then we have the Red Shinron who lives inside the Black Star Dragon Balls, and then we have the Dark Shinron who shows up at
the Black Star Dragon, yeah.
Yeah, who shows up at the bit. And then you have all of the little shadow dragons, but they're not... I think they're just supposed to be, like, accumulated.
They're individual spirits of each of the Dragon Balls, and one of them is a representation of the Panty Wish.
Yes! It's the fucking...
Which is amazing.
The woman, yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. That's amazing. But okay. So, Buu Saga, Goku doesn't get to do enough in the moment, I think, that qualifies him to be more of a bad person. I don't really think anyway. Again, I just mentioned that thing with him not being able to save his kids, but that's not really his fault.
We could get into questionable things he's done in the movies, if I could think of any. Aside from being, like, really conceited when he's like, if I don't, who will? I'm like, well, I mean, you're right, but...
I mean, yeah, but that's only because the universe is written in such a way where he's the strongest, so he's lucky. He's lucky to be the protagonist of an ongoing narrative that is meant mainly for children.
He's like, I am aware of the fact that I have plot armor.
Absolutely. Movies. He doesn't do a lot. He's a lot more heroic in the movie, and a better father too in the movies.
Oh, he's definitely heroic in World's Strongest. It's like Goku at his best.
And Cooler's Revenge, he's basically Superman. There's even that moment where he's like, the animals, are they okay?
In Cooler's Revenge, he's like Superman and Jesus all rolled up into one.
And in Return of Cooler, same.
Well, actually, he's more like Superman and Jesus plus Bruce Lee, because he's got martial arts and shit.
Absolutely.
That's like the ultimate... I've just described the ultimate human.
Yeah, word. Okay. Even though he's not human.
Even though one of those things is a deity and one of those things is an alien.
Same diff. If you ask the right people, I guess.
Alien.
Okay. Let me ask you a thing. Broly's Second Coming.
Yes.
Goku probably could have showed up earlier to help out Gohan in that fight with Broly.
Yeah, I mean, it's really weird the way he shows up anyway. Like, I wasn't...
It's because it's not really explained.
He doesn't... I don't think he really shows up. I think he just appears on the screen because they're doing the father-son Kamehameha, and it's supposed to be the same as when... I think he's basically reaching out from the other world and lending his power to his sons, like he did...
In the same way that he did in the Cell games.
Right, because you see him standing behind Gohan at the end of the Cell games, but he ain't really there.
No, he's just lending his energy.
Like
and he also does the same thing in BoJack Unbound.
It's like a Force Ghost type of thing going on.
Because... alright, so let me think. So, okay, so in Broly's Second Coming, Trunks and Goten gather the Dragon Balls.
Yes, because they want to wish for... I don't remember.
Ice cream or something.
Shit, that's fucking stupid.
Del wants to wish for jewelry or whatever. That movie is also fucked canon-wise. Where the fuck did that take place?
Oh, God.
But whatever.
In the super version of Resurrection F, right? one of the wishes that Pilaf's henchmen make, because the dragon grants 3 wishes in that movie. So the first one, sorbet.
Whoa! What? When does that happen? What?
In Super.
When did Shenron get 3 wishes though? He only had 2.
I'm not sure. That is a continuity fuck up. But basically, what happened?
God damn it, Toriyama.
What happened is Sorbet wishes for Frieza to come back to life, and then Shu, the dog ninja, he makes the same wish he did in the movie for the money or whatever. And Mai's just like, I want the most delicious ice cream in the world. And Shenron's like, aight.
Will do, I guess.
Here's some ice cream.
Here you go.
Tiny child
Enjoy.
girl.
Yeah, enjoy, bitch. You have to call me a bitch. Well, I could have. I'm a dragon, so I can do whatever I want.
This is actual dialogue.
That's verbatim. Basically, though. Okay. So, let's move on then. So, I think that he probably could have showed up a little earlier, but whatever. Because it's unclear whether or not they actually summoned the dragon in that anyway. It's sort of left ambiguous whether or not Goku returns because of the wish, or whether or not he just returns of his own free will. I'm assuming it's because of his own free will, because we don't see Shenron, and that's never happened before. So,
right.
I'm assuming that that's of his own free will. He does something similar in GT when in a Hero's Journey or Hero's Legacy or whatever the fuck that movie's called. When Goku Jr. gets the 4-star ball and wishes that his grandma can be made better, and Goku shows up and goes, "Ah, you idiot! You had to get the 7 Dragon Balls, you fucking idiot!" Makes Goku Jr. feel all bad and goes, "Your grandma's gonna die. Deal with it. But hey, I'm your grandpa, and that's pretty awesome. Bye now." That's pretty much that scene.
Turns out I'm your grandfather. You should feel honored.
I'm pretty great, so. You know,
like that,
at least you got that going for you.
It's like that moment in Doctor Who when the curator basically explains that he and the Doctor are one and the same, and he's like, "Congratulations."
That's pretty great, right?
And I'm like, that is how I would greet myself if I ever went back in a time machine.
Yeah, I feel like it's good to be you, isn't it? You're just like, it's not. I'm just like, well, it's gonna be one day.
Damn mouthy 5-year-old.
One day things are not gonna be that shitty.
Mouthy 5-year-old version of me. I'm like, hey, guess what? Got a phone in my pocket, so fuck you.
Yeah. I've had sex, fuck you. You're not gonna know what that's gonna feel like for a while.
I've seen movies that you must wait the rest of your life to see.
I've seen a new American Godzilla movie, young Bill.
And
what have you got to say about that?
And I received it relatively well.
Yes, well, over time it sort of lost its luster, but at first, it was mind-blowing. And you're not going to have that for at least 10 years.
It's great.
It's great. You should feel bad that you didn't get to experience it.
Oh, also, you're going to get a heart disease, and here is this cure. Really? No.
All right, so Dylan, I feel like we're kind of beating the same note over and over again now, and we're 2 hours in. So I feel like we should start to wrap this up. So let's just go then to specific examples that we want to bring up from all the other stuff that's not in the actual series. We talked about Uber already, so we won't bring up that again. Is there anything from the 2 movies that you want to bring up? Battle of Gods and Resurrection F specifically?
Not that I can think of.
Because we already covered his whole overconfidence thing. We've already talked about that, so I don't think we have to get into that again.
Oh, since we barely brushed on GT earlier, there is that really weird, questionable thing that I'm not even sure what happened at the end of the show, where he goes off with Shenron to be a...
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about that.
To be a something?
To be a god, maybe?
To be a dragon?
Because he absorbs the Dragon Balls.
Right.
Why?
I don't know.
GT has this weird thing of, like... GT is, like, trying to convince the world you don't need the Dragon Balls anymore. That's the point of GT. GT wants to create a world where they don't need the Dragon Balls.
Which is an interesting concept.
That's fascinating.
That they fucked way up.
They fucked it up royally. They fucked it up like Chi-Chi fucked up Goku.
Literally and or figuratively.
Both. In every respect. And they fucked it up because they took the interesting concept of why Earth has fucked up their own use of the Dragon Balls. And they don't have it make sense. Panty Wish? That was cool and interesting. But it's just like... They don't do anything interesting with it in terms of, like... Nobody has to pay any consequences for anything. The humans and the Earthlings and the Z Fighters don't really have to pay for anything, really. I mean, yeah, they have to deal with some shit, but nothing really of any consequence happens to them.
What if the Shadow Dragons had been trying to like do things that like reflected on what the wishes that created them were? Like, for instance, you make a wish to resurrect some people from the dead, which happens many, many times in DBZ.
And many times the same person.
And then what if that Shadow Dragon came out and they were like, okay, well, you abused the power of the Dragon Balls to bring these people back to life. And since I am a negative energy representation of that wish, I'm going to set the balance back in order by killing those people that you used the wish to bring them back from.
Well, I was going to say, wouldn't it be more interesting if anybody that was killed by a Shadow Dragon could not be wished back to life by any means? They were dead forever. So wouldn't it have been interesting then if Pan would have gotten killed?
And then you could kill everyone in the show, and it would finally be over.
No, but I was thinking, what if you get Pan killed?
Yeah, kill Pan. I'm all for that.
It would be super fucking dark and horrible, but it would have been because also
no,
like,
wait. That would have been a way better way to kill Piccolo because the way they did it fucking sucked.
It was sad though.
Yeah, but it was like you could tell that they were trying to be sad. You know, it's like they were.
Yeah, it was very fun. I mean, although I choked up in that moment where he contacts Gohan mentally.
It was like, hey, we're going to kill off a main character and not bring him back. And we're going to do it blatantly for the reason that you think we're doing it.
To a character that's barely been in this series so far.
Shows up just to die. He's like the Yamcha of this show.
Yeah, when did he... How much of GT was he in prior to that? Like, none, right?
Yeah, he like showed up during the Android 17 stuff, and then he was dead.
Because he was chilling out on Kami's Lookout prior to that.
And then he like pulls a Goku. He's like, I'm just going to hang out in hell. It'll be great.
Yeah, pretty much. Why does he go to hell?
I don't remember.
Because he didn't do anything... Oh, it's because of the Dragon Balls. He goes to hell because he was joined with Kami, and Kami created the Black Star Dragon Ball, so that's why he goes to hell.
That's interesting, kinda, but it's, see...
It kind of doesn't make any sense, because it's like, wouldn't King Yema go, alright, I get it, you had nothing to do with this is just sort of your genetics fucking you over. Okay, fair enough. But no, King Yema's like, fuck you, you're going down there.
Isn't it a thing in GT that, they're not actually on Earth anymore? Because doesn't Baby use the Black Star Dragon Balls to create a new planet, and then the whole human race just like relocates to that planet so that when the Earth blows up, it's no biggie?
No, what I remember is that they go to that other world so the Earth can blow up, and then they wish the Earth back with the Dragon Balls, with the Namekian Dragon Balls.
Oh, okay. Was that it?
That's what I remember. I could very well be very wrong, and if anybody wants to correct me in the comments. Well, it'll be after the fact and it won't really matter, but go ahead anyway. I know it makes you feel good, so go ahead.
Yeah.
But that's what I remember. I'm probably wrong, but that's what I remember. So GT, anything else? Is he a good grandfather to Pan in GT?
From what I remember, yeah, man, they like hung out in space and like...
Yeah, but is it responsible of him to bring her to space?
He's like the doctor to her Susan.
Yeah. I think you can debate whether or not it is responsible for him to bring her into space, but she's quarter Saiyan. And again, it's no more dangerous than what he put his own children through, so I guess not really. It's no worse than what he did earlier on.
And it's not like she doesn't have ample protection. You know, he's there, Trunks is there, Goten was supposed to be there.
Why didn't he go again?
He was late.
Oh, he slept in, that's right.
Yeah, because Goten is like...
Yeah, he's a slacker, which is why I like him.
Very.
In GT.
He just spends all his time slacking off and, like, chilling with bitches. Like,
is it weird that I like Goten more in GT than in Z?
No, it makes perfect sense because he's not an annoying child.
And he's kind of a cool womanizer, so I kind of dig that. I dig the idea of Goku's kid being a womanizer. That's really interesting.
Like Trunks, you know, Trunks, it was like he was an annoying kid, but I could kind of forgive him because I knew he was going to grow up to be a kind of cool guy. But then, like, Goten is like, the first time I meet him, I'm like, God, die now.
Die now and die forever.
Get killed by a shadow dragon and then never come back.
Yeah, exactly. In our bullshit version of GT where that's a thing. Go ahead and get killed.
I hope somebody kills you and then uses the Dragon Balls to make a wish, specifically preventing anybody else from using the Dragon Balls to wish you back to life.
Oh, can you do that?
If you can, they should.
They should do it. They should do it for all the villains. Why don't they do that for all the villains? How come they just don't go, anybody who's ever been killed by Goku, make sure they can't be wished back to life?
Just promise me you'll never do it, Shinron.
And Shinron's like, I guess I will. Promise me!
It is within my power.
So it shall be.
Can you make Yamcha useful? That is not within my power.
It's possible. I could make him a Super Saiyan, and even that wouldn't make a difference, and Yamcha just goes hang himself. Okay. Let me ask you this question now. Because is there any other specific examples you want to get to? I know I mentioned Super before, and that Super was part of the reason why I wanted to do this video. But
I can't think of anything specifically.
I feel like if I got into Super now, it'd pretty much just be repeating what I've already said. You know, it's him being selfish. He wants to get stronger, and that's all he cares about. So ultimately, that's Goku's ultimate moral shortcoming, is that all he cares about is his own strength.
Goku is and forever will be. He may have grown up over the course of the show, but he's still a child.
And he's still an irresponsible child.
And I think that's why they made the decision to keep his voice the same in the Japanese version and never have his voice grow up, because his personality never grows up.
You know, he's the definition of a big kid.
He's just
It's like Tom Hanks in Big with superpowers.
He's just a man-child, and Chi-Chi's all like, you gotta go farm because we need money. Goku's like, nah, man, I want to run off.
Goku's like, I'm gonna get money for free, Oh, no, not for free. I mean, he killed the most destructive being in the universe, but
Goku's like, I don't want to work. I just want to, run off into space with Whis and train. She's like, nah. He's like, please.
Wait, is that still an issue later on? Because they have 100 million Zenny at that point. Why does he still need the farm?
They blew it all.
What did they blow it on?
It's vague.
It's vague? What do you mean it's vague? What did she do? Buy a fucking planet?
I don't know if she spent it all on her upcoming grandkid or what happened, but there's just a point where she's like, Goku, you got to go back into the farms and start working again. He's like, why? What about the 100 million Zenny? She's like, we spent it all.
What the fuck? Isn't there only a year in between?
Yeah.
The Battle of God stuff and the Resurrection F stuff? They must be really shitty at managing money.
I'm like, Chi-Chi, you had one job.
Really? Goku saved the world from a fucking destruction god this year. What did you do?
She spent all the money, because that's what bitches be doing.
And that is why Goku and Chi-Chi deserve each other, because they're both terrible people. Now, before we wrap up, Dylan, there's one more thing I'd like to ask you. Would you think Goku is as bad of a person as you do if you hadn't seen Dragon Ball Z Abridged?
I think...
Because I feel like Abridged brings it a lot more to the forefront.
I think we would still have these moral questions. And I think that you could still pose these questions. I think what all Abridged did was sort of alert a lot of people to those questions. So essentially, this is not a new debate that we're having, or not.
No, and again, I've wondered about this.
Not even debate. This is not a new discussion that we're having. People have been discussing this for a long time.
We've talked about this before.
And basically, what Abridged did was hey, all that shit that people have been talking about on the internet about, the questionable morality of Goku, we're gonna make that a plot point, and then that just. I think that we could still. Would we have posed these questions if we hadn't seen Abridged? That I can't really say. But could we?
Well,
but could we have? Sure.
No, I don't think it would have been on my mind as prevalently now if I hadn't. I don't think I'd be into Dragon Ball Z as heavily as I am now if not for Abridged. So.
No. The thing that triggered my recent Dragon Ball fandom is definitely fucking the new movies.
Oh no, me too. But I'm just saying that overall in the past, in my adult life, if you can call it that.
I've been loving Abridged for a few years now. That didn't really relight my flame. And they were like, hey...
It definitely did for me, though.
And they were like, hey, new movies. I was like, fuck yeah.
Because when I first started going to high school, I got into Abridged. So I definitely... It rekindled my love for DBZ in sort of my more mature life, if you can call it that again. But again, it definitely isn't the only thing. I've been thinking about this since I was a kid. And it was definitely interesting to sit down and try and work it out. So... I think that's pretty much all we have to cover.
This is what Bill thought about when he was a kid, when he wasn't being really harsh on Josh Brolin.
Yeah, I was just like, fuck Goku, he's a dick. I hate him, but I love him anyway. Goku is one of the most interesting characters in all of fiction to me in that regard, in that he is so universally seen as a beacon of white light, but beneath that, he really is critically morally questionable. And questionable as a human being just because of his upbringing, what he is, why he does the things that he does, and ultimately how responsible he is to the people around him.
Yeah, I can't say it enough, and I really want that to be the takeaway here. He doesn't know how to be a person.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, we're coming down that he is a bad person, but for the reason why he is a bad person is completely understandable and not his fault. And it would be nice to see him get beyond that and move beyond that, but he's not gonna. It is completely out of his character to grow up. And that's a problem for him as a person, interesting to watch as a character.
Yes.
So I guess major takeaway, I wouldn't want Goku to be my dad, but I'd like to chill out with Goku for a little bit. That would be really fun. Oh my god, dude, can you imagine fucking hanging out on King Kai's planet with King Kai and Goku? That'd be amazing.
Just chilling out.
Just fucking chill and be like, yo, Goku, what's up, bro?
Just me and Goku and King Kai and Bubbles and Gregory. Just fucking...
And some booze, man. Just fucking chilling out, getting drunk with Goku.
Just hanging out. Maybe one of the Kais stops by, maybe not.
Fucking dodging Kamehameha blasts.
Maybe Bojack is at the center of your planet, and you're like ranting and being like, "Arg!" and I'm like, "Shut up, Bojack."
Shut up, Bojack. Anyway, so Bird's jokes aside, this was a really interesting video, man. Thanks for doing it with me. Thanks for taking this flight of fancy with me.
Indeed, I can't pass up a DBZ discussion.
No, whenever we talk about Dragon Ball Z, it's always amazing. So I'm glad that we did this. All right. So ultimate question: what do you think? What do you, the Dragon Ball Z fan community at large, think? What do you, the potentially people who don't like Dragon Ball Z, who watch this video because you hate yourself, think about Goku's moral standing?
Why is that
in the
demographic stuck around to the end of the video?
I don't know, but if they did, I don't want to discount them. So
if you're one of those people, I just gotta ask, what?
Why did you stick around to the end, and do you think Goku is a bad person? Let us know in the comments, let us know on Facebook, let us know wherever. So until next time, everyone, be sure to stick around to watch the Sons of Serizawa podcast. We are approaching the end of our third season. We're going to be doing a Star Wars special for the next episode of SOS in order to commemorate the release of The Force Awakens, and we're all very excited about that.
It's going to be a
fun. We're going to be doing.
It's going to be a fun time.
Yeah, word.
Everybody
and
should
we're
come.
Going to be doing
YOB.
Word. You should RSVP. And we're also going to be bringing back DFOS soon. We're probably going to be planning a Christmas special. I know we talked about that at one point. We should probably do that.
Yeah, we can't miss motherfucking Christmas.
No, we have to do motherfucking Christmas. It's just a matter of what we're going to do is the question. So we'll work that out later. And just be sure to subscribe to Dylan, subscribe to me, and keep a lookout for all other DBZ stuff. I assume once I get through Super, we'll probably do a video on it. So I'm not sure which channel that'll be on.
Get through it. It's ongoing.
Once I catch up, though. I mean.
Oh, okay.
We'll just do a video where it's like, here's what our thoughts on Dragon Ball Super now.
If it takes as long as it took for you to finish Breaking Bad.
No, it won't. I'm already halfway through it.
That's what you said about Breaking Bad, and then a year later.
I got this. It took me like 5 months to get to season 3 of Breaking Bad, and then I was like, nah, it's enough. And then I finished it 2 years later. Yeah, Breaking Bad was a 2-year journey for me.
I don't understand.
Because it was really depressing. Anyway, so until next time, everyone, I'm Bill Worster, a.k.a. Zazubaar.
I'm Super DM64.
Reminding you to not be a bad father and not be a bad person.
Don't give your mortal enemy senzu beans if you have access to such things.
And don't put the weight of the world upon your child who just learned how to do a technique that you think will be able to let him save the world. Because it won't. He will fail, and you will all die, and you will feel bad. So, anyway, until next time, everyone, just don't be Goku in that respect. Be him in the respect of, always wanting to be better in terms of strength, and that's about it. That's about all you can take away from him. Anyway, thanks for listening, everybody. We'll catch you next time.